Hey everyone, you're listening to the official podcast of 4playernetwork.com. Check us out at that address for everything you need to know about our community, monthly giveaways, and nightly live streams. You can even support us on Patreon at patreon.com/4player. And last but not least, you can catch the live recordings of these podcasts every single Thursday night on our Twitch channel. We hope to see you there. Enjoy. Welcome to 4Player Podcast, episode 700 and... oh my god, what is this? 22? 722?
22.
I was actually about to say 72. I was about to give us a good 50 episodes. Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Nick Henderson, and I am joined tonight by Brad Simons.
Hello.
Nolan Hedstrom.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And Christopher Davis.
Good evening.
And we are here to once again talk about video games. And just like last week, because last week was a pretty news-heavy week, we're in the midst of, as Brad would call it, Key 3 season, right?
Yes.
We're in the middle of announcement season, so at the time of the recording last week, the State of Play had aired, so we talked about all the stuff from Sony, you know, which was not a lot, but there's some bangers on there. But since last week, Jeff Keighley has hosted his Summer Game Fest, and Microsoft held their Xbox/Bethesda Showcase. There was a Capcom thing. There's a Devolver event. There's been a bunch of stuff. And of course, there is a metric fuck ton of stuff to talk about from this. We're not going to talk about every single little thing, but we're going to probably, you know...
We'll only talk about the good
highlights.
ones, so out of the 50, there's probably like 3.
Yeah, the highlights and the lowlights, maybe. I don't know. So yeah, we're gonna do this first. Just like last week, we're gonna do the first segment. We'll talk about all this stuff. I apologize. I'm a little low energy tonight, so I'm struggling to think about, like, do I have any housekeeping that I wanted to mention on this episode? Probably, you know.
Revival Club?
Revival Club is playing Vagrant Story right now. Which is...
Are they, Nick?
Yes, Brad, we are.
Is the
Jesus.
Revival Club?
Yes, of course, and I am. I'm playing it. I'm playing it, bitch. But you know what? This is a weird time. It's a weird time because I'm at the same time that I'm trying to play Vagrant Story, I'm also trying to get back all of the time that I lost sinking into Elden Ring, which includes trying to play catch up for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, which I know. If I stopped playing Monster Hunter...
you need to stop using that as ammunition in the defense of you not playing Vagrant Story. It's like, you've been saying that. Like, well, Brad, I just had to play Monster Hunter. What, should I not play Monster Hunter?
Well, Monster Hunter
you
has
play
a hard
both,
date.
damn you.
Monster Hunter has a hard date. I need to be ready for Sunbreak by the 30th.
True.
Because that's when you're going to be starting and we're going to be playing together, potentially. So I want to be ready for that.
When Sunbreak comes out, we will have a whole community of people doing
frothing at the mouth for it.
multiplayer hunts, and you should be a part of that.
You know, for me, I mean, I know you are like a Monster Hunter addict, which is totally cool. I get it. It's a great game. I'm actually at this point really enjoying. I've kind of sunk back into it. And I'm really enjoying the.
Are you still using Charge Blade?
Yes, I am still using a Charge Blade.
I mean, that's a tough weapon.
I'm not the kind of person who, like, bounces. Like, I noticed you keep talking about, like, all the different weapons and experiments and stuff.
No. It's not that. A lot of people stick with the weapon. That's just that one's a tough one. You get bopped a lot. You miss.
I do get bopped a lot. But I am Hunter rank 2, and I'm on Village level 5 now. My next mission is the Magnum Hollow, so I'm making progress. I did the first license test last night. Boosted me up to Hunter rank 2. So I'm getting there. And I just want to get back. I love Monster Hunter, but you know, it very much is you got to jump on that train immediately, because if I try and get into it after the train leaves the station, I won't follow through. So trying to get ready for that. And funny enough, we will talk about Monster Hunter Sunbreak tonight because Brad, you've played the demo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is out now, which is one of the things that came out of the Summer Game Fest. But before we get to impressions, because I'm going to talk about the Quarry, before we get to all that stuff, and we're going to do that in the back half. So for now, I'm going to start with the Summer Games Fest list. And I want to send a shout out to the Drunken Merchant, our community member Drunken Merchant, for keeping a pretty detailed list of everything that was shown. I'm not sure if this was necessarily in order or what. This is a long
I think,
list.
to
Holy
my
shit.
knowledge, they were in order of when they were announced.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, well, I don't even know where we're going to start with this thing.
Starfield, let's do it. Band-Aid,
really-
right off. Let's go.
You would-
Band-Aid. Crispy's
Wait,
not here. This shouldn't be that hard.
Wait, but Starfield is Xbox.
Yeah,
I
that wasn't
was
Summer
opening.
Game Fest.
Yeah.
Fine.
I was opening the Summer Game Fest.
Fine.
You got
Last of Us. Doesn't need to exist. Go. Band-Aid, right off. Let's rip it off.
Jesus.
You are a fucking troll. Oh god, is that
I
really a conversation you want to have?
I was
just
reading
kidding.
an article about how, especially bigger studios, when it comes to new technology and new things coming out, a lot of the times it can be easier to fuck around with something you're familiar with in that new ecosystem than building something new from scratch. And so I think the thing here is they're saying, okay, look, we've already made this game before. We now have newer assets, probably pulled from The Last of Us 2. Let's use some of that new technology to remake this older game with that newer technology, so we become more familiar with it. So when we go to make a new game, a new IP or whatever, it's faster. We've already learned from some mistakes when
They're
it came to
honing
just
their
essentially.
craft.
Yeah, I was kind of reading about that a bit. So I mean, it's one of those things where I get it.
Who's actually developing it, though? I wonder.
Naughty
So-
Dog. It's a second team at Naughty Dog.
So I'm wondering if this is, like Nolan was saying, if this was maybe... I mean, Factions is a Last of Us 1 game, right? And Last of Us 2 did not have a Factions. Maybe this is sort of like a testing ground for like turning a game, that a Last of Us 1 game, which is Factions 1, into more of a Last of Us 2 experience by injecting all the Last of Us 2 gameplay into that older
real quick,
thing.
just to kind of rewind a second, because yes, they closed out this show with the announcement of The Last of Us Part 1. And this is obviously, it's going to open up a lot of debate about whether it's necessary, all this stuff, or whether they're wasting their time or their efforts on something that people don't really want, blah, blah, blah. But I do think this decision was
Not
made...
that people don't want, that people think might not be necessary.
Yeah, sure. And let's be real. A lot of things that get remade these days are not necessary, but people still end up finding things to appreciate about them and enjoying them. But like, this was also a very strategic decision because they have the Last of Us TV show coming out next year on HBO, and I'm sure they want to stoke that fire before that happens.
Somebody brought that up in the conversation, and immediately it's like, dude, that's why this thing exists.
I think honestly that might be the most significant driving force, because if you don't have like The Last of Us 3 to stoke the fires, it's kind of like, well, what could we do fairly quickly to move The Last of Us back onto the forefront of people's minds in remaking the first one. And not to mention they've made all these improvements to The Last of Us Part 2. Like, it makes sense to want, especially if you want parity between the two games, like being able to flow right from Part 1 to Part 2 and like have the gameplay and the visuals.
Yeah. If they didn't do a really nice remaster last generation for The Last of Us 1, maybe I'd buy it a little more. But again, it exists. There's no point in
the real
arguing
crime
that
is that
it
it's
shouldn't
$70.
exist.
The real crime is that it's $70. Sorry, Chris Davis. Let's let Chris Davis.
Go. Sorry.
So I want to get clarification in here about this actual project. This did not start out as a Naughty Dog game. This was actually being done by a support studio for Naughty Dog that was trying to get, their legs underneath them to actually start producing games for PlayStation. At a certain point in development, about a year and a half to 2 years ago, it moved over to Naughty Dog for finalization. But this was a project that was initiated by an entirely different team that Naughty Dog inherited.
You say finalization, but that also sounds like maybe they weren't happy with what they were putting out. You know what I mean? Because
that is part of the suggestion, but that's not necessarily part of the case.
I could also see it being this. If this is really a new team who's not familiar with developing for PlayStation consoles and stuff like that, there's probably a lot of rough edges. Whereas you have the Naughty Dog team who's been developing for PlayStations for years, and they can be like, oh, I know how to polish that edge. I know how to take this product that you want from 0 to 80, and I know how to get that extra 20. And if anyone is a developer, you realize how hard that extra 20% is. 0 to 80 is super easy. 20 to 100 is fucking ridiculously hard to do.
Right.
So it's one of those things where I can understand why they might have had that other team do the bulk work to, like I said earlier, get familiar with tools, learn environments, and kind of learn all that stuff. And now that they have that, the people who are more familiar with it can finish it off while they maybe start on a new project.
They have a foundational work to build off of that a lot of the assets don't need to be remade. Like for this project, they didn't go have Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker come in and redo all their mocap.
Yeah,
and all
they're
Why would
using
they?
all the same.
So
What's up, Brad?
Anyway, I think we've spent way too much time on this.
Can I one final thought, because I don't want to come off as a bad guy anti Last of Us 1. I love the first game, I really do. I think it was my third favorite game of that year, whatever. Also, we talked about Resident Evil 4. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and I was kind of anti remakes too soon. The reason I don't like a remake is too soon is because I think what happens is you lose out on the potential of a remake of a beloved game, let's say 10, 15 years from now, where it could have that Resident Evil 2 remake moment, where you're taking something that's loved from very long ago and all of a sudden seeing it in a new light is like, dude, it's revelatory. It's amazing, right? As opposed to, he's got a nicer beard or whatever. I feel like this kills that potential for at least, a couple of decades. For at least a couple of decades.
Decades.
Yeah, I mean,
the game's not even a couple of decades old.
yeah,
I know it's too soon.
I mean,
Another remake. I think it's going to be like a full ass redone asset remake.
Look, I just want to be upfront about the fact that I'm super excited for this.
No one doubts.
This doesn't surprise anybody. I know this. But there's something. This is kind of a unique situation in that, like, it's the same studio remaking their own game. And I know what Chris Davis just said and all that, but I'm also thinking about, like, look, there's this strange parody with what's going on with the Prince of Persia remake and how that was being developed by a totally different team. Then all of a sudden they're giving that game back to the original team that made it. So by the time we see that game, it may not even resemble at all what was originally developed by that one team. And so, like, to me, this doesn't feel so much about people. Like, I think people misuse the word remake and remaster all the time. Like, they're not calling this The Last of Us remake. They're calling this The Last of Us Part 1. And yeah, I know that's like splitting hairs, I suppose, but to me, this just feels like a modernization. The only problem I have with it is that they're charging full price for it. If this was like a $40 product, it would be a no fucking brainer. And I don't think people would even be looking at it as a remake. It's just a modernization that elevates The Last of Us Part 1 to The Last of Us Part 2 in terms of its gameplay and its visuals and stuff. Because and a lot of people have been jumping at saying, oh, that visual difference is so minute you can't even tell. That's bullshit. I just want to say that. That is bullshit.
Is entirely bullshit.
It is a
you can
large
tell. It's not dramatic.
It is dramatic, dude. I think a lot of people forget how that game looked. And if you go back and I mean, not saying that game looks bad by any means, not that game is not playable or still amazing. It's one of my favorite games of all time.
And it was
a modernization. Like, if it was a modernization sold at $40, I don't think anybody would have any of these conversations, any of these problems that we're talking about here. It is kind of a crime that they're trying to sell it to us for $70.
Sort of. So especially if it doesn't have factions. So the other
part of this Last of Us presentation they closed the show out with was a little disappointing in that we didn't actually get any fine details about this, but they did talk.
I'm sure we didn't get any details.
Yeah. They showed concept art, and they finally kind of verbally acknowledged that, yes, they are in fact working on a standalone Last of Us multiplayer experience that is
They already said they were doing that. Right?
I don't think anybody at Naughty Dog had verbally.
It was never officially confirmed.
Yeah,
there was lots of stuff online that it's like, oh, Naughty Dog is hiring people to work on a multiplayer game, and all of this stuff. Everyone knew it was happening, but this was the first official announcement.
And assuming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Neil Druckmann comes out and drops this like concept art, which looking at the concept art, like it looks like it's definitely, based on that, you can't really tell much obviously from concept art, but it does look like they're going for something much bigger in scope. Like it looks like it's going to be much bigger arenas with maybe a lot more players at once, and there's going to be its own standalone story, and they're going to be weaving a story in and out of this multiplayer experience, but I'm not sure how that's going to work. But it definitely sounds ambitious, and I'm excited
Oh,
about
that's
it.
funny.
One of the
It's
most
kind of a bummer that
prevalent suggestions about one of the modes of the game is based on an aspect of the picture, which shows a fire going on in some buildings going on. And the idea is that maybe there is a battle royale aspect to this,
I mean,
or a mode
Yeah, I could see that.
in
like the
which you are
weather or
dodging
something could.
not weather so much as like a big old like fire just sweeping through town.
And shrinking the usable
I don't know
map.
how. Given that it's been a long time since Factions 1, I'm not sure how a lot of Factions 1 fans might feel about maybe what's
So
taking so long is them wanting to add a bunch of story.
so hold on. So
Let's
I
ask
don't think
Nolan.
anyone here can talk about factions
Yeah.
like I can. First off, everyone says just because the map is bigger, it means battle royale. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I'm saying you're jumping to conclusions.
Yes.
People like, oh, the maps are bigger, blah blah blah. As someone who's played a little bit of factions, those maps were real fucking small. You could get spawned in and have someone
Personal.
right on you within a second and kill you, and it felt fucking horrible when that happened. I welcome larger maps, so if I do die, I have a little more breathing room to do something about it. Now, if it's battle royale, I don't know how that's going to be, whatever. But it's one of those things where I think honestly, a bigger map is the next logical step, even if you were to keep it the exact same style of gameplay.
Here's a
That's all.
question: Do you think it's reasonable to assume that if they're going much bigger in scope, bigger maps, more more players, do you think they're going to introduce like clickers and stuff into the?
So
Yeah.
so that's
you're
something
gonna
that
also deal with zombies?
people always even wanted that in the original one, and I think one of the reasons why it wouldn't have worked very well was because the maps were so small.
Yes.
But I could easily see them adding something like that where they're like roaming
Yeah, I'm just
either
like
clickers or other kind of like
Especially,
infected.
I'm just
especially if they do
picturing
a
like
battle
having to
royale.
navigate it infected like I would like an actual like solo campaign in Last of Us, which I adore that like gameplay loop. But like doing that while also dealing with other players would be really cool.
So
I feel like.
I think it would also add a bit to, and it kind of, I don't want to say, trust me, I'm not shitting on factions by any means, but there were definitely some players who took advantage of game systems.
Yeah.
And one
Jaeger.
of the things you could do is like, Jaeger definitely didn't. But it just kind of taking advantage of understanding how the characters move and stuff like that, and and they would essentially just start running around the map, kind of, because they knew even though they were running and they were standing out more, they still could get the upper hand on you because they kind of knew what was going on. And I think doing something to combat that, like having zombies that would now be distracted by that. So if they were to try to just run and do this, well, now the zombie's going to go after them. And I'm not saying you have to constantly crouch walk, but obviously that was a big part of that game, was trying to be stealthy, and all of a sudden a firefight breaks out, and then stealth is irrelevant now. But it's one of those things where every kind of encounter, you would encounter someone, and either you would die or they would die, and then you would kind of almost reset, because now that you've killed them and they're respawning depending on the game mode you're playing, you don't necessarily know where they're coming from. So now, even though you've killed them, either maybe they have another teammate nearby, but you also need to now consider they're coming back, so you need to reset yourself. So it's one of those things where I think adding infected could change the game dramatically.
I think they have an opportunity here to potentially make like a really unique multiplayer experience that would even legitimately excite me, which is I think is hard these days.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm thinking about like how unique it felt with like Assassin's Creed multiplayer and stuff. Like they could, if they really try, they could do something.
If you want
like
an
that.
example of a very good PvEVP experience that they could base factions mode around, Hunt Showdown, man, is really good.
That's actually a good point. Yeah,
there's a heavy emphasis on stealth in there, and individual group cooperation.
Okay. I've had that game on my library for a while, and I do intend to try it.
Me and Chris Davis played some.
Oh, really?
a while back. Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
this was like a long time ago when it was like very early.
Ooh.
Him and I streamed some, and yeah, no, and I know it's come a long way. But yeah, that's actually a great example of A, giant maps, B, with actual objectives and stuff that you're
Yeah.
doing, so it's not just kill the enemy. And then C, yeah, having enemies as well as other players that A, when all of a sudden you start a shootout, now everyone's aware where you are. They might either try to get the jump on you or maybe kind of wait it out. And so I think it's one of those things where there's, I don't want, once again, would I, go home crying if it was a battle royale? No, but I don't think we should just be jumping to
Yeah.
that assumption.
I
Yeah.
feel you. Is Hunt Showdown, would that be a good like option maybe for like an actual like 4-player community night thing?
So
Or?
the problem with that game is it's 2 players per team. So it's not
Oh.
like it's big teams.
Actually, no, it's
And
up to quads now.
oh, it is okay. So yeah,
Oh,
like they've been working on it.
perfect.
So I guess it is larger now. But
Starfield.
maybe if you could have like a private server or something. I don't know how any. It's been a while since I've played it. But yeah, it was up to 4 people. That might be a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I know we dwelled on Last of Us for a while there. So the rest of the Summer Games Fest thing is going to be very, very quick. Because I don't want to obviously talk about every single thing on this list. There's a few things that are worth mentioning. Brad, why are you shaking your head, Brad? Do you want to lead this conversation?
No, you. I was.
You're killing
You
me.
said
You're
said we're
killing me.
not going to talk about everything on this list, and I was shaking my head in agreement with your no.
Oh, okay. Well, so this list is very long, and I don't know the best way to necessarily. I don't know if you have the list. If you're looking at the list, I'm
Highlights.
looking at. Okay. So, but what might be a highlight to me or a low light may not be for you. I do want to mention I feel really robbed by that Aliens Dark Descent announcement. What the fuck?
Yeah, yeah. We'll wait for
They-
more gameplay on that one.
Yeah, but
What
that was an
about-
isometric thing, and it like they showed like this like fancy cinematic, and then like cut straight to like a 5-second isometric view, and that was it.
Don't
It's
even
like,
know what kind of
fuck?
isometric game it is.
I mean,
even.
there are
Don't even
heavy-
know what the genre is.
Well, it's supposed to be. People are suggesting it is like an Aliens branded version of The Ascent, which came out, I believe, last year and did
Yeah.
pretty well.
They're basing that on 2 seconds.
True.
Here's
Okay,
another
real-
low light. Oh.
Okay. Hit us with your low light. I'm jumping around.
Bloober Team is making a new Layers of Fear.
Yes. Are you doing this so you can rub salt in my wound?
No, I mean
Brad?
I think it's big news because
Yes, it
people
is.
thought Bloober Team was going to come out and show Silent Hill, and they showed
Yes.
Layers of Fear 3.
Yes. I mean, they were teasing Layers of Fear 3 as early as like Tuesday of last week, I think. So it was pretty much confirmed at that point. But like, still, the fact that we basically know they're working on a Silent Hill project, and then to be teasing Layers of Fear is just incredibly disappointing. And not to mention, there's even more stuff coming out this week that is just adding fuel to the fire of like talking about Konami's plans to reboot the franchise in game form. Like, and they're talking about the multiple projects again and stuff. So, like, we know these things are coming, but this summer was not it. And that's a bummer. I'm still holding out hope that maybe if Sony does their own thing later this month or next month, that there'll be something there.
But let's
but
think
man,
about
it's a
this
bummer.
logically speaking. Like, do you think actually Konami would actually sign off on the reveal of their major projects that have any possibility of Hideo Kojima being within the proximity thereof?
I mean,
I don't think that's a big,
I don't
as big
even
of a
know.
deal as you're talking about right now.
yeah,
But-
I don't know if that factor. It's about money and like what's going to get the most eyes on it. I don't think that's really going to factor into it. But
They
yeah,
showed
maybe.
more Callisto Protocol, which continues to look good and
Like-
like Dead Space.
Yeah, very, very much.
Yes, they got
yeah,
that
that gameplay
stomp.
was-
They got the stomp, man. That's the best
They
part.
got the stomp, the brutal deaths. They even showed off like the stasis looking thing. It's so funny how much of that game just looks like they're trying to avoid saying like the buzzwords from Dead Space, but they're having to really try
Well,
because they can't say
At
stasis.
some point,
they can't
dude,
say
he pulled out a gun that looked almost exactly like the plasma cutter or whatever. It's at
he's
some point
talking
they have
about
to be a little
strategic
worried about a
dismemberment.
lawsuit.
Also, the
some
first thing
point.
he does in the gameplay is shoot at an enemy's limbs.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
he's literally talking about strategic dismemberment, but he can't use those words because that's what they use to talk about
The
Dead Space.
marketing
But you know what?
term.
But at the end of the day, it looks like Dead Space. It's just so weird now that it's having to compete with itself, basically.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I know you liked how routine looked, but I don't think anything else here is really worth mention of a on the podcast, of which we are now 25 minutes in, honestly. Unless you
don't want
disagree.
Can I not? Well, yeah, I got a couple quick things. I'll skip over some of the other things, but I do want to talk about routine for a second.
I want to talk about routine.
Routine is
Routine
is
back.
maybe
It's
one
a
of the
Carlos
highlight.
meme.
Yeah, it's the Carlos meme, but it's also now a highlight of the show for me, and that's based off of what amounts to about a minute of footage. They got Mick Gordon to do the music for it, which is crazy. But even though none of that was demonstrated in the trailer.
Well, here's
But,
the
like,
thing: is that Mick Gordon was assigned to this project when it was in development almost 10 years ago.
and he's
Like
still
he has
with it.
been on the hook the entire time.
It's wild, but you know, like Alien Isolation was. It looks like it's taking like I'm not super familiar with how this game looked prior to it disappearing off the face of the earth. I went back and looked at a couple screenshots and stuff, but like
You should
was
watch some of
mostly
the
a-
footage.
it was mostly a ghost game at some point, and like now it's come back and it's looking straight up like an Unreal Engine 5 Alien Isolation with like killer robots in space and like
Not
but,
even
like,
a
with
GIF, Nick. Not even a GIF. Like that's
Sure,
some
no,
real
that's
old man shit. Looking at screenshots, dude. Why didn't you just pull up a trailer?
You just watch the trailer, man.
An
to
animated
Word
GIF.
Channel.
I didn't want to poison my mind with the old shitty looking routine.
It was never shitty looking. First off,
Okay, I'm just teasing.
I
I'm just
opened up
teasing.
an old Game Pro and looked at the screenshots.
I
there's
all
tell
I'm
you what,
saying is
there's going to be a
it's-
really interesting like backstory to this game at some point.
sure.
Evidently, so Lunar Software started retweeting again as soon as their game revealed, and they were
Right.
saying things and hinting at things like they were kept alive in a loft by the developers of White Paper Games, who bought them PCs.
You're like a fountain of knowledge of studios people have never heard of. It's insane, Chris Davis.
oh, heaven forbid we get to know these people that are going to be industry giants one day.
Oh,
Ooh,
high
that's good.
expectations for a routine. I mean,
The
that's-
next generation, man, we gotta think about them. Yeah,
Hey, man.
they said
Sure,
in
I
a
mean, hey.
tweet that quote Pete Bottomley kept us alive, even buying us PCs when the ones we had couldn't run Unreal Engine 4.
Wow, that's crazy.
There's going to be a story behind this game that we should pay attention to.
Hey, but first we got to get the game, and the game is coming out. Well, I mean, did they even say a year? Did they at least say 2023? I can't remember.
They didn't say no,
doesn't matter.
So
but they
that's
did
some
announce a
scary shit.
publisher, and that's a good sign.
What was the publisher?
Raw Fury.
Raw Fury. That's good. They have a publisher. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It looks like Alien Isolation with killer robots and it looks creepy. But like it has like the same like lo-fi technology that you see in like Alien and like that is so it's so my jam. Especially considering we'll probably never get a
NASA
sequel to
punk.
Alien Isolation. NASA punk. The other sci-fi horror game that I wanted to highlight here is Fort Solace, which
the hell is
sounds
that?
cool. It's the one with Troy Baker and I can't remember his name off the top of my
That
head, but
describes
Oh,
Arthur-
that narrows it
names
down.
out there.
I know that narrows it down, Nick. Oh, yeah.
they were on
Who was he
stage.
fucking talking about?
Are you kidding me? Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption,
Yeah,
the voice
yeah.
actor, and Troy Baker. They were on stage.
I remember they come out and they were talking about some game. I kind of tuned out a little bit.
I mean,
Oh
it,
my
it
God,
looks
well,
high
maybe-
fidelity. I just can't tell what it is.
I mean, it's gonna be like a linear thriller in space. It's gonna be story. It's very narrative heavy, and like, but you know what? I love those kinds of games, and I like both of those voice actors, and I don't know. I like the vibe. I don't know what the obsession with space was at this show, but there
It was
was
just the time.
so many space games. Everybody's in a hurry to get off of Earth, I guess. I don't know.
Because we're done with
All right,
this
what
shit,
else is
man.
on? What else is on here? Arc 2. Vin Diesel's
God.
back. I picked up Arc 1 for free on Steam.
Okay,
The price
Nick,
was
come on.
The price was
Come on.
finally right. Oh
Nick,
my
it's
God,
not worth
dude.
your time, though.
Arc 2. We're done.
Brad, are you in a hurry? You still got 2 hours left before you have to go to bed.
No, I'm not in a hurry. Look,
just-
I just know
you are.
we
You
did
talk
we did
about
20
Starfield.
minutes. No. It's not about that. We did 20 minutes on a remake of Last of Us. That's all I'm
I
saying.
said constantly we were spending way too much time on that.
I know. I'm just worried about Some of the there's other big games to talk about, especially with Xbox. I mean, I'm looking at this list. I looked at the list. I pulled up chat. I looked at the list.
I was done.
You mentioned
that was it.
Arc 2. Oh, okay.
That was. I was gonna name drop a couple things. That was about
name
it.
drop. Do some name drops.
Name drop. Go ahead.
No,
name
Brad's gonna skewer me for name dropping
No,
stuff.
look.
Then I will fucking
you can say
name
the
drop if
name.
you
If
don't.
Chris Davis goes into like studios we've never heard of,
We're
I might put a
spending more
kibosh.
time about what we're not going to talk
Exactly.
about than just talking about things.
Flashback 2.
Looks good.
All right, moving on to the Xbox Bethesda Showcase.
Really? Okay.
Marvel's Midnight Suns. Still don't know what the fuck that game is. They haven't shown a second of gameplay of it. I feel like
It's an XCOM like.
No,
with
there's
cars.
there's a ton of actual new gameplay out there that wasn't at the show, but that they released the same time as the show. So if you're curious as to what this looks like, it looks kind of like XCOM with Marvel characters with cards, but they all have these outfits that look kind of weird.
Yeah, it's getting its own dedicated event later this month to like show off much more of the gameplay and exactly what it is.
I'm interested in a Firaxis Tactics game, obviously, but my love of Marvel is kind of waning these days, and I'm worried that if I'm not all in on Marvel, am I going to care less about this game? And I don't want to care less about it. I'm just worried that I might.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm looking over this list. I don't think there's much else here that I want to name drop. So
Midnight Fight Express? That looks pretty fucking
Oh, wait. Xbox? Oh, no.
No.
What on Xbox?
Brad, do you know where you are right now?
I thought you had moved on. I thought you were memeing.
Do you need an adult? I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Somebody press his life alert button.
I didn't
do
watch
want to say
any of the Summer Game Fest, but I did notice, I was looking at the list that y'all had posted, that there's a Goat Simulator 3. I didn't even know there was a Goat Simulator 2.
There wasn't.
Okay, here's the funny thing.
Oh.
Goat Simulator 3's trailer was literally a parody of Dead Island 2's trailer, if you remember that, with the jogger on the beach, whatever. And it's such a weird, like, Dead Island 2 barely exists, but they're like they're riffing on something that I'd be shocked if people can even remember. But it worked because, like, my first thought was, oh my god, is this what I think it is? Are they bringing back Dead Island 2?
I thought that too.
And then I was like, why does this look
up this trailer?
Ichi's brings up a good point. Goat Simulator 2 was on the NVIDIA leak list.
Oh, did they just change the name?
It's 3. They might have done it just to fuck over the NVIDIA leak list.
But you know what? That's pretty good.
They baited us so hard with this game.
They baited us. All right, moving on to the Xbox Bethesda Showcase, which has significantly more to talk about. With this, Brad, I'm going to go down the list and talk about some of the bigger things. We'll end on the big one. So they opened with Redfall, which was nice to actually see this in motion. And there's actually been some additional details that have popped up online since the gameplay reveal, which personally make me a little bit more enthusiastic about the project in terms of it being an open world game that's with a lot of environmental storytelling and very arcane style gameplay, but with the ability to pull their players in co-op, obviously, because there is definitely a huge co-op component. But they did describe it as like a core arcane experience, and the fact they did talk a little bit about when you do play co-op, only one person's story progresses, but your character progression remains, which makes me think that there's a bigger emphasis on story than I think a lot of people were kind of assuming.
That sounds more like a multiplayer game thing, but
I mean, honestly, it sounds to me like it has more in common with Borderlands than like Destiny or something.
Regardless, that's not a good design to not have story progress apply to everybody who's playing the game.
It reminds me of my time with like Far Cry 5 when I was trying to do co-op and only one story was progressing, which was bullshit, but it also was just kind of reinforced my idea of like, well, I'm just going to play solo. That's how I want to play anyways.
What about the actual footage?
Dude, I think this game looks pretty rad, but I'm also a big fan of like vampires and like shooting vampires and watching them explode into like cinders and ash. Like that
cinders.
They had me at like the Blade vampire disintegration animations. Like they had me hook, line, and sinker. And you know, part of me was sitting here thinking like, I gotta remember this is not like Arcane that made Dishonored. This is the team in Austin. And then I was like, but wait, the team in Austin made Prey, and that game was fucking amazing. So you know, at this point I'm pretty hopeful.
It's still not going to be a Dishonored, though. I mean,
No.
when I saw the footage, it looked like kind of like a Left 4 Dead. Now, the details that you rattled off that came later, it does make it sound a little less like a Left 4 Dead, but it definitely seems like a game.
Fully explorable open world.
It does seem like a game that is designed from the ground up to be a co-op experience. Now, that doesn't mean
to be clear, I'm not saying it's gonna feel like Dishonored, but I am hopeful that it's going to have like the kind of vibe and approach to storytelling that Arcane has always leaned on, which I always find fascinating. And so as long as they can kind of keep that core in place, and if I can bounce in and out of co-op and playing in single player play and stuff like, and it's telling a cool story, because I like vampires and I like open world stuff, and I'm digging the visuals and kind of the aesthetic here. So like this is up there for me now. I think it's rising in anticipation for me. Although to be honest, nothing that I just said was super reflective of like what they showed. It was more based on what I heard about afterwards in the interviews.
Yeah.
But I did like the way it looked. But there's not a whole lot to say about it because
you know what I liked the way it looked, Nick, was Hollow Knight Silk Song.
Silk Song. I knew that was coming. Dude, what a how can they do that? How can they roll out Hollow Knight Silk Song? I mean, they obviously wanted to announce that it's coming to Game Pass first.
Yeah.
But like they didn't even they did say at the beginning that everything you're about to see is coming out in the next 12 months, so there's that. But they didn't say anything about release date, not a year, not a month.
I'll tell you why, Nick. Because Hollow Knight is now officially prestige indie, and they don't have to. They don't owe us anything.
True.
They're like, Supergiant or like you know what I mean? They don't have to. It'll be ready when it's ready, and you can wait.
On a quick aside about Hollow Knight, like I totally agree with you because Hollow Knight is a fucking amazing game, and Chris Davis should be flogged for not having played it.
Yeah, that's so weird.
We don't want to have this conversation again.
But here's my question. What do you think is going to happen when they finally make a game that's not Hollow Knight? Like, do you think
that's going to be a while now before we even have to think about it?
The Shovel Knight devs recently did that, and their new thing looks really cool. So,
but it also looks a lot like Shovel Knight, doesn't it?
No. Their game Mina doesn't look anything like Shovel Knight.
Good point. All right. High on Life. This is that weird looking Rick and Morty looking game, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not Rick and Morty.
It's from the creators of Rick and Morty. Yeah, Justin Roiland, their studio, Squanchy Games or whatever.
Did you watch that full trailer, Nolan? What was your takeaway?
I mean, if you like the Rick and Morty style of humor, and you're not afraid to have dude bros on the internet tell you why you're not allowed to like Rick and Morty, then I think you might want to play it.
All right. Cool. I mean, it definitely looks wild. I don't even know how to talk about it because it's just so weird looking.
Yeah. That's their style of humor.
We got another look at A Plague Tale Requiem, which is coming this year still, which very excited. It's so weird that like we've seen this game like I feel like 4 or 5 times now in the past like 2 months, and we still don't have like a date. It's coming 2022. I'm gonna guess October. That's my guess.
Sometime in the fall,
Halloween.
definitely.
Yeah, it's a fall game for sure. But it continues to look pretty cool. I think Brad, you're gonna watch like a YouTube Let's Play
or
of it
play
or something.
I still haven't decided. I'm definitely interested in the series.
I mean, it's a really fun story.
I believe you. We don't have to dwell on it though.
Yep, moving on.
He's already convinced. We don't need to convince him here. Okay. What else? Forza Motorsport.
I mean, okay, so we're just riding. Let's talk about one that I'm actually excited for.
Okay.
What was the Curious Case of Benedict Cumberbatch or something?
Oh man, you're jumping way to the bottom
Benedict
of the list.
Fox.
Hey, who the fuck cares? The order.
The last
case of Benedict Fox.
It does look
good. Looks fucking good.
Yeah, that looks like it's gonna be dope.
I don't know. Metroidvania, spoopy, like
Cthulhu.
Good art style. Yeah, Cthulhu. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds but it also like I say Cthulhu, and I feel like that kind of like it's gonna like draw a certain kind of image in someone's head, but like it's very colorful and vibrant and
it's not like dark, like think like Limbo or Inside. It's
Yeah.
more dark in themes.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where oftentimes games, and I don't think they're necessarily going for a spoopy atmosphere so much as they're going for like oh, this is like creepy stuff in theory. I think it's more about just they're not trying to hide stuff in the shadows to jump scare
Right.
you.
Yeah,
But from
I'm into it, man.
the footage we saw, like it very much looked Metroidvania. They were definitely using like special, like the guy Benedict Fox, I guess, like special abilities that clearly he was acquiring, traversing a world, doing combat and stuff like that. It looked really good.
Yep, that was definitely a highlight for me as well. Um,
May I mention one? If Nolan
yeah,
mentioned one?
do it. Fuck it, we're going off the rails. Everybody just
Yeah.
mention one. Go, Davis.
Fuck it.
I said Davis. Chris Davis.
Whatever.
I've never called you
Erebon
Davis before
Shadow
until tonight.
Legacy.
Wait, what is it?
Erebon Shadow Legacy. It was during the Xbox Showcase.
Is that even on my list here?
It is.
Yeah, it's on the list. Should
It's
be.
spelled incorrectly, but it's on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a stealth game where you're using your powers.
Oh, the robots.
Well, you're zipping in and out of like shadows and like kind of submerging into shadows, like you're like some kind of mechanic out of Splatoon or something like that. And you're doing a lot of stealth stuff. It looks really good with robots. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this
Can
is
I
one of the
mention
ones
one
that
now too?
I marked.
Is this how we're doing this?
Yeah, I guess.
You can't mention the last one, Brad.
Fuck the host, right?
Starfield. No,
God.
Team Ninja announced it was a game that was not official. It was actually announced.
Yeah.
We didn't have a name though. It is Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, and there's been more details since the cinematic trailer at the Xbox.
Very confused about what this game is.
Hold on. There was a cinematic trailer. Wo Long Fallen Dynasty is Neo, which is fantasy feudal Japan,
I definitely.
but in the Romance of the Three Kingdom universe.
So, okay.
Which it's okay. It's like a old famous like novel based on like the the Three Kingdoms era of feudal China. It's
okay.
It's gonna.
Okay.
You got. I mean, there's a lot of games based on Romance of the Three Kingdoms universe, like Dynasty Warriors and stuff.
That's the connection that I was really hesitant about because everybody was the way people talked about it. I was thinking like, you're telling me this is a Neo game set in the universe of Dynasty Warriors, which I guess technically it would be if it's. I don't.
No, Neo in ancient feudal China. That's what this is.
Like Neo that we were all guessing it was Neo 3.
It is a Souls-like. Well, that's offensive, Nick. It is, it is a Souls-like. They have given some details about it. So it is. This is Xbox's Neo, but Chinese instead of Japanese, right?
The marketing for the game is, and I quote, "Supernatural elements mixed with Chinese swordplay are just some of the highlights of the next great Maso-core title from Team Ninja." It's Neo but set in China.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I'm into that.
As a big fan of the Neo series and also wanting to kind of wash the taste of Strangers in Paradise out of my mouth, I'm excited to kind of get back to Neo, even if it isn't called Neo anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of right there with you. Is there any, I have to go back and rewatch that trailer. Was there anything in that would be considered gameplay?
Cinematic.
It was all cinematic? No. Okay.
Yep.
Huh.
But they did say early 2023, which is, that studio can make games, so
they certainly can. But I have a feeling it's also going to, when it does come out, it's going to be kind of like, okay, this is really like Neo. You know what I mean? Just in terms of, because I mean, they're cranking. Well, I guess Neo 2 was.
Maybe you're being a pessimist, but you should also play Neo 2.
Is Brad calling me a pessimist? What the shit? What the shit is happening?
You just said that it's probably going to look just like Neo.
I mean, dude, I thought Neo 2 was not different enough from Neo 1 necessary to justify its own existence.
You didn't play it?
Because
Neo
I didn't
2
feel the
is
pull
more different.
Was...
Neo 2 is more different from Neo 1 than The Last of Us Part 1 is from The Last of Us Remastered. So, there you go. Next game.
Okay. God. Oh my lord. Okay. Can I name one? Is this what we're
Do it,
doing now?
Please.
Do
please.
it.
This is what we're doing.
Cocoon.
That would have been my next one.
Cocoon looks
Looks
sick. I don't even
Looks
know what's
really good.
happening in half that shit, but it looks like the cool one of the like
So
most
it's-
stylistic. Like
it's from, speaking of what we brought up earlier, but from the guys who did Inside in Limbo, or like some of the developers. I don't know if it's the actual studio.
No, different studio, but like people that worked on it for sure.
People who worked on Inside Limbo.
Add Cocoon to the list of really cool looking games being made by developers who once worked on Limbo and Inside. With the other one, which is
It's the Bioshock of indie games.
Somerset, I think is what it's called, or
I think so.
forgot
Yeah.
the other one. The alien invasion looking one. This looks
Cocoon.
rad though. Like I don't even like you're a
They-
bug, like a beetle looking thing, and you're like rolling
Yeah.
stuff around and traversing the world in
Well, yeah,
really
you're
bizarre,
like
weird
using
ways.
these orbs to manipulate the world, but then also going into the orbs. But it's
Yeah.
also puzzly. Like I mentioned it when we were streaming the event, but it very much gives me Fez vibes, where you're trying to solve
yeah.
a puzzle and then you're going into that. But I think you might come back out of it as well, similar to Fez, where you're kind of going deeper and then coming back out and solving puzzles and stuff like that.
There
It
were
looks
there
pretty
were several
interesting.
moments in that trailer where they did like a transition, and it was just like, what did what just happened?
Yeah.
Like my brain had to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. Such a cool looking game.
Yeah.
All right, who wants to?
Pentiment. Pentiment.
Pentiment. This is.
I think
this
it's one of the
game-
coolest looking games at this show.
Really, bro?
It was.
Pentiment is the new Obsidian
Is this the game that was rumored
RPG
to be
with the
like Obsidian's
Disco Elysium comparisons? Yes,
Yeah.
Mm.
with like this kind of, I don't even know how
I mean-
to describe this art style. I've seen it before, but I don't know. I think
mean-
this has potential to be really cool. You should watch
Oh.
that trailer again. It's,
Is
a
this
cool
the
trailer.
game with the worst dialogue text font that they're
What?
using?
I don't know what. I'm gonna be honest. I find that text to be perfectly legible. Like, I
no,
don't
no,
know what
no.
y'all-
It's not the text. It's not the font itself. It's the effect that they do, where a bunch of like, gibberish appears and then it kind of fades in on top of it.
Translate. Yeah.
It's a very. I mean, that effect is pretty in your face. I don't know. It'll take some getting used to, I think. But
I mean, the whole game.
I think
visual
there's a
style is
lot of
kind in your
potential
face,
for
but
this
it
game. It does come out this year, so I'm excited.
does look cool. Oh god,
I'll say another one that
go for it.
it's not new, but Grounded is finally coming out.
Yeah,
for release.
1.0.
I'm pretty excited for that. It looks insanely different. I don't say different, but it just looks like there's so much more going on compared to what we played when we played it when it was in pre-release. So I'm pretty excited to get back to that.
A lot of stories.
Chris
Mhm.
Davis, what about you have another game you want to name drop here?
I
That's not
mean,
Starfield.
Visually speaking, I'm kind of interested in Ravenlock.
Which one was that?
The not Alice in Wonderland game.
Oh, right.
The
right.
voxel kind of
Yeah,
through the
everything's-
looking
Oh,
glass.
Oh yeah.
That's from isn't that from the same team that did oh my god, somebody help me. The game that was part of
Mhm.
Summer Game Fest like last year, the year before. Fuck, what was it? The one that looks like Earthbound. What's that game called? It's
No one plays,
Echo
so no one knows the
Generation.
name.
Echo Generation. Isn't this the same team that did
Mm.
Echo Generation? It looks just
Uh,
like it.
I don't.
Unsure.
know
I think so.
closely.
Somebody in chat find out. That does.
That
look
would be a
cool,
pretty
though.
quick turnaround for an indie studio, though.
That is true. I want to highlight As Dusk Falls because it looks like it has a pretty unique art visual style, and it's very narrative focused, and it seems kind of like this weird combination of hand drawn and like stop animation to tell a cinematic, like a very cinematic story. I don't even know what the story is. Something about you being on the run from the cops in like Nevada or something. I could have just butchered that story altogether. I have
You
no
did.
fucking clue, but. It looks pretty cool. I'm digging its
I
style.
think the one thing that I'm curious about is I found the studio, by the way, of Ravenlock. It's
actually Echo
Coco
Generation,
Cucumber.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that is the
Coco
team that did Echo
Cucumber.
Generation.
Yeah, correct. But yeah, it was like they got to like a rest stop and like some crimes were going on. It seemed like there's multiple
Crimes
stories.
happening.
But the thing that I'm curious about is it was saying like up to 8 players. And I'm curious as to what the actual players are going to be doing. And there was some speculation. They were talking about it in chat about, is it going to be like you're voting on what actions happen, similar to, think of like a Telltale game where you make a decision, but maybe everyone votes on the decision I'm
I can see
curious
that
as to
being
how
a
that. What would happen if the decision was split 50-50?
Ooh, a tiebreaker. Someone has to play rock, paper, scissors. I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
Well, wasn't
But
there a game
yes,
that
that
did
could be
that
cool.
recently in the past several years?
I don't know.
That it was
Was
a
it?
it was a
Probably.
supermassive like horror game where you voted on the decisions
Oh,
that were
yeah.
made.
I remember that, but I don't
I
remember what
could
it
have
was
sworn
called
you
or who made
played
it.
it too, Nick.
Can I
I
throw
probably
out?
did.
Can I throw
Yeah.
out? Because we have talked about Scorn before, Nick.
I'm excited for Scorn.
I would like to throw out Diablo 4.
Okay,
I was wondering
actually
when you
also
were going to
gonna
mention that.
I was also going to highlight that because I came away from this presentation strangely excited to play Diablo 4, even though I've never touched Diablo.
I'm sorry. This wild you're
What? Why are you
no,
laughing
it's
at me?
fine. I love when you do this, Nick. But no, it's
Do
fine.
what?
I'm
What am I doing?
strangely excited to check out this insanely popular video game called Diablo. It's fun.
But
I'm
I've
glad.
never been
This
interested
will
in
be
Diablo before. It's
no,
you
no,
know,
no. I
it's
know.
just
I
I don't
understand
know
why you're
I
interested
don't know why
because
this one in particular
looks
is appealing.
really, really sexy. This looks good. I like the look of this game. It looks a lot darker and more contrasty than Diablo 3. I'm not a huge fan of Diablo 3, but I adore Diablo 2 obviously, and
Almost
this
too
looks
much,
like
some would
Diablo
say.
2 with verticality and nice graphics, and the druid's back. I mean, he went werebear, and I love me some werebear. So I'm pretty excited. I think this looks really good.
It was a little
know.
weird that they revealed this final class, the Necromancer, I think it was, using in-game cinematics instead of a blur trailer, but it did look pretty decent.
Well, maybe
It's
they
just
didn't
blur
want to
trailers
spend
are
blur
kind of
money
like
these days.
yeah, blur is pretty much tradition at this point with all Bethesda's
Yeah,
projects,
but like
so.
at this point, you know, if it's not if the return on investment isn't like if it doesn't justify the cost of what they're going to spend for it, maybe it's not worth it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways,
But maybe
yeah.
that's a sign that they're working on their in-game cinematics, and that stuff actually looks pretty good. Because I mean, that does look pretty good for a game like Diablo. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
I mean, I
Before
think it looks really good. I'm excited. But Starfield.
before we talk, let's talk about Starfield. But since you quickly mentioned it, Brad, I just want to point out, Scorn looks
No,
pretty hot.
Nick. No, I've mentioned it, so you didn't have to. We talked
Wait,
about
are we-
Scorn before.
Are we not going to talk about Persona 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah, that's
Sure.
kind of a decent deal.
Yeah.
I only skipped over it because of, they're known quantities. But it is exciting that they're coming to Xbox, right? Or
Well, Xbox and PlayStation and PC.
Yeah.
They're or not PlayStation. Obviously on PlayStation, but they're like the
I thought
the
they were
final
already on
versions.
PC except for 5.
They've gotten
crazy?
golden on PC.
Just
I don't know
golden.
if I don't know if P3P.
P3P is supposedly not available on anything.
Yeah, just PSP, which is cool because that's the one that's like the kind of remake demake that they did where you can actually play as a female main protagonist and have different relationships.
Man, I
cool.
feel like I'm gonna fall for this hype again, and then I'm gonna play it for 20 hours and then never pick it up again, and I hate that.
The games are so good.
They are
And
good.
their
I
music
love
is
them.
so good.
I don't think they'll be offended by your 20 hours, Nick.
But hey, you know what? Maybe they'll
And
be.
also, I will also
Play
say,
them on my
Nick, that
Steam
those
Deck,
20
baby.
hours are probably going to be really good.
I'll
Yeah.
play them on my Steam Deck. Maybe the Steam Deck will get me through a Persona game.
You're going to have some bangers to
know.
listen to.
Yeah, I mean those games do have some hot bangers. Okay, let.
we go.
I guess to really quickly name drop. Kojima came out and announced he's working on a game with Xbox, which I think we all
He
kind of knew
literally
existed.
said, "Fuck Jeff Keighley. I'm partnering with Xbox."
He Frenched
Everybody-
Phil.
But like everybody's making such a big deal out of this. It's like the only reason I think he agreed to do this on this platform is because he had no details to give us. It was literally a talking head. There's no mention of the name, which we've heard is codenamed
Overdose.
Overdose. Thank you. And apparently it's a horror game, supposedly. But like he wasn't there to confirm any of that. He was just there to confirm that he's partnered with Xbox for this thing.
Yeah, he's
I
just
guarantee you that when we finally see this game in motion, it'll be either a Summer Game Fest or the Game Awards.
Yeah.
And Keighley will get his
Maybe.
his thing.
Before we get into Starfield, because it can be a bigger topic, I'm not going to bring up any of these other games that are listed here, but I do want to mention a quick list of games that didn't show up, which I think ultimately is why I think there was some cool stuff here, but I was kind of disappointed. I expected more out of Xbox because this is their first party lineup that they've had announced for years in some of these cases, and we still have not seen, including Hellblade 2, which we saw kind of recently. But they did no. I want to be clear. They did not even mention these titles: State of Decay 3, Avowed, which is Obsidian's Elder Scrolls game, Perfect Dark, Fable, and Rare's Everwild.
So I do want to point out a couple of those make sense because they did open this by saying they're only talking about games coming out in the next 12 months, and maybe they already know that none of those games are coming out in the next 12 months.
Think about that.
I know it's crazy.
We've already been waiting a long fucking time, and now we have to wait. We know we have another year, and we're still not getting any of these, which just makes it seem more sad.
I mean, they could show one or two of those things at the Game Awards this year for like late 2023 release or something.
Of course they could, but they didn't even mention their names, and these were their big first-party developed games. Right. If you don't count the fact that they recently bought Activision Blizzard and Bethesda, and they count those, but those were all projects in development. These are the ones that we've had the question marks about for so long. So,
honestly, the only thing on that list that I'm genuinely shocked we didn't see or hear about is Hellblade. Because the other ones, I think a case could be made for why we didn't see any of those games, especially Everwild, which apparently Everwild was completely rebooted, and Fable.
Yeah, but that was
we
years
only never got
ago.
a cinematic. Fable still feels like it could be 2-3 years away. Like who the fuck knows?
2010, dude, Nick. Fable 3 came out in 2010. It has now been 12 years. This is a first-party IP from Microsoft.
It doesn't fucking matter, dude. They announced this game like a year and a half ago. Like
no,
it could have. But at that point, it could have been literally just a fucking, concept on a piece of paper.
But there's now a developer at Playground Games, the developers of the new Fable,
right? Yes,
makers of Forza Horizon, that said that they've been now working on the game for 5 years.
Okay, well, that happens sometimes. I'm just saying, like Hellblade, I thought was coming out this year, so I'm really shocked to not see it. I thought Hellblade for sure was going to be a 2022 release, but apparently not. So,
I mean, no one said it's not, Nick.
It's Fable. This used to be like so.
Right. It didn't say anything not announced here isn't coming out within the next year.
That's true. That is true. I like it. Glass half full, Nolan.
It used to be Halo, Gears, Forza, and Fable. And it's been so long.
I know, but dude, I think you need to separate Fable.
The tree doesn't grow from an acorn in 5 years. It takes a while.
I think you need to separate those two things.
More than 12.
Because this Fable, I don't think is going to resemble anything like those original games. This is like they're rebooting this franchise. That's the vibe I get from this. I
mean, they better reboot it.
It literally doesn't matter that Fable 3 came out in 2010, because it has nothing to do with this project at this point.
They're calling this one Fables.
All I'm saying is the reason I think the Xbox One generation was a whiff is because Microsoft was whiffing with their first party, and that entire generation it was just Forza and Gears. And this was supposed to be the generation where they buy all these studios, they spin up all these studios, and they bring all these IPs back. And a year from now is now over 2.5 years into the Xbox Series X.
Brad, they're coming, Brad. They're coming.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's we still need to somehow talk about Starfield before the break. So let's talk about Starfield.
Okay.
What's that one?
We finally got our first actual deep glimpse at Starfield. And Brad, take it away.
Fallout in space. Oh, plus we know Fallout in space plus No Man's Sky.
Yep. Okay, can we at least acknowledge that it's fucking lame that so much of the conversation now is just all I care about is that one sentence.
You're stealing my line. That's what I've been arguing about in Discord all day, and you're just going to come up here and steal my line.
Listen,
let me set this up. Bethesda Game Studios is a studio that's been getting a lot of shit over the years. A lot of it has to do with, one, Fallout 76 was a huge train wreck, actually developed in Austin, not by this RPG-making Maryland Bethesda Game Studios team. That's fine. It's fine to be mad about that. Also, people, I guess history has not been kind to Fallout 4. It is now considered to be, Bethesda's weakest RPG. People like history has been kind to New Vegas, and now it's one of the most beloved fucking RPGs of all time. So all I'm saying is they have a lot to prove here, and
I
Yeah.
liked
Yes,
Fallout
Nolan.
4.
I know
like
people do, but they don't
Put it
like
on
it
my
as
top
much
10
as
that year.
they don't like it
Well,
as
yeah.
much as the other ones. And history has not been kind.
I'm not comparing them. I'm not comparing Fallout 4
I
to
know.
Fallout 3. I love Fallout 3. I love New Vegas. Those are some of my favorite games of all time. I'm not letting my love for those make me hate a game that I actually did enjoy.
I know. But all I'm saying is history has not been as kind to Fallout 4, and because of that, I feel like Bethesda Game Studios, to a lot of people, has a lot to prove here. People are not happy with Bethesda. They think that maybe they're not good at making these RPGs anymore. And I think the topic of conversation should not be like this last line that Todd Howard spit out at the end of this presentation, where they said, "Oh, by the way, 1,000 planets," which is the thing all anyone's ever been talking about. Oh, they're doing No Man's Sky. They can't do this. They can't do 1,000 planets. It's all people have been talking about. When I think what really we should be talking about is, are they going to fix the issues that people have with Fallout 4? Can they prove themselves to be a studio that can still make a Skyrim, like that sets the world on fire? And are they going to have issues with combat and that sort of thing? Because it doesn't matter how many planets there are. If you go there and the combat sucks, then there could be 1,000,000 planets. It doesn't fucking matter, right?
The combat looks pretty all right in this.
We should start with the combat because I think that's what they opened with. And
I want to say Brad was not a big fan of it.
I don't think it looks good. One and two, they don't have VATS anymore to kind of fall back on to make it a little fun, a little more cinematic, a little more strategic. Stats influenced, I guess you could say, with VATS. It looked like that first sequence where they go into the research facility looked like, it could have been like a Call of Duty thing with honestly not great shooting. The hit reactions are not good. And if you don't believe me, watch it again. Some of those dudes do not skip a beat. They do their entire run animation until they are dead by bullets. But
I think it's worth pointing out here that before we saw this game, before we got this look at this, when they delayed this game, right before we even found out they delayed this game to 2023, there were already people talking about combat needs work.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised at all if combat is a big reason why it's being delayed.
Okay, I would love for them to work on the combat, but anyone is talking about is how populated 1,000 planets are going to be. And I'm terrified that this next year is going to be Bethesda looking at the things people are talking about and not the things that maybe probably still need a little bit of work. And they're going to be putting more fucking trees and quests on 1,000 planets.
Here, let me tell you something, Brad. As someone who literally does computer development as my job, procedurally generating stuff is not hard. I promise you, they are going to have a bunch of set things, but then that on certain planets, certain things are going to happen. This is going to be here, but I guarantee you, they are going to have hundreds and hundreds of planets that they don't care about, and there's a script, and it's going to populate the planet with a bunch of random bullshit that you might enjoy doing. But I guarantee you, they aren't going to be spending as much time on it as you think.
Yeah, I think people need to accept
Skyrim. Go back to Skyrim. I could pull up my 10-year-old save, go into Skyrim, and explore cave after cave after cave and get quests that takes me to cave after cave after cave, even though they're the same caves I've been to. It's procedural generation. They just have a thing. It puts a map here. It points you there.
You're right.
I don't think they're going to be spending 40 to 50 to 60% of their development time just making stuff happen on these planets.
You're right, because
they press a button and the planet appears, quests appear on it, people appear on it, and it just happens.
I know. That's what it currently is, probably, right? You go to 90% of these planets to get resources and maybe do these procedurally generated quests, right? But if the core of it's not that great, then it doesn't. That's still going to be a problem, and I don't want them to spend a second more on that shit, because if people really think that Fallout 4 had a lot of issues. I think their most important goal here should be fixing the sins of the past and make sure that, this
agree.
is the best Bethesda game
I mean,
RPG and not the
Can I-
best No Man's Sky they can make.
Can I
Because I
chime in
don't think
real
they're
quick?
going to reach No Man's Sky, but I think they can reach what could be an amazing Bethesda Game Studios RPG.
Personally, I think the combat could use some work, but I'm not entirely negative on it. I think it looks fun. I'm
I think it
hoping
needs a layer. It needs
It
like
does-
some
it does
sort of
need a layer.
strategic or RPG layer on top of
Sure.
it. Don't recreate VATS, but you got to do something. Remember Outer Worlds did like, I guess, slow-mo or something. It wasn't amazing or anything, but they know that they couldn't just have the real-time gameplay because it's not good enough. It's just not good enough on its own. Cyberpunk was just a fucking shooter, and it was a shooter that honestly was not really up to snuff compared to other shooters on the market. And in my opinion, that gameplay, especially like the melee and stuff, was not that fun. And I don't want that to happen to Starfield. I mean, it might be too late, obviously, but these are my concerns, not 1,000 planets.
they're definitely valid concerns. And when it comes to the controversy here around the whole 1,000 planets thing, personally, I think, like Nolan said, it's probably going to be I mean, I get that same vibe about No Man's Sky a lot, where it's like when I played that game, I landed on a planet 9 times out of 10. There's not a lot of interesting stuff on the planet.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the same way here, and this is it's strange to me that Bethesda is maybe the first studio trying to apply that idea, that concept on a AAA scale. But hey, whatever. Somebody was gonna do it eventually. Might as well be Bethesda, I guess. But I think what sucks is that regardless of how good the main like 5 or 6 planets are, like the ones where the bulk of the story unfolds, like no matter how good the side missions are or the dialogue or the quests or the character drama or whatever it is that's unfolding on those main planets, it's all going to be diluted. It's all going to live or die by how good the quote unquote like 1,000 planets are, because that's all anybody's going to talk about. Like if this game is like a 9 out of 10 when you look at like the main story they're trying to tell and the main planets they put all of that they handcrafted. If you look at all that and it's like, this is a 9 out of 10. This is like the greatest game since Skyrim, whatever. If 1,000 planets outside of that are empty and boring,
let me ask you
people
this.
are going to treat it like it's a 5 or a 6.
Did
you know what I mean?
Did
Like,
they
it
treat
sucks.
Mass Effect 1 that way, really? I mean, Mass Effect 1 was still loved.
I mean, but like that
Yeah,
wasn't
I'm
1,000
sure
planets.
it's gonna be-
revolutionary for its
was-
time.
It's going to be
dude,
better than Mass Effect 1. At least you can get resources on these fucking planets.
Dude, Mass Effect 1, like, that was like, what, 30 planets? 40
I
planets?
looked it
or
up. It's
something?
39 planets you can land on. And I think that's
Yes.
including the main ones.
And you know what? There is a reason why Mass Effect 1 is not my favorite in the series, and it has a lot to do
With the landing.
It's
It's a great idea in
Uh,
concept, but it was not a good execution.
like I think they've made a bit of a mistake, and not necessarily because I don't think they're capable of doing it or because it's not worth trying, but like
Here,
if they don't deliver on it, all it's going to do is taint everything else that they've
Deliver
done wonderful.
what, though? What does it have to be for people to be satisfied? They can't make 1,000 Fallouts, and I don't think anyone's expecting 1,000 Fallouts in space.
I mean, really, I think really all the myriad of let's just call it the bank of like randomized quests or variations thereof that can be found on these planets. It needs to be big, and they need to be largely interesting. Like
Here's the thing,
because you're
no
going to
one
end up doing
does
a lot
those
of them
fucking
a lot.
quests. No one does those quests in these games. People do like the guild quests, the companion quests, the side quests with interesting stories. No one does this randomly generated
yeah,
bullshit.
you're wrong about that.
So, okay, hold on. We've been talking about 1,000 planets for like 20 minutes. That's
Yeah,
like
and
one
that's-
aspect of
we
like
fell into
30
the hole.
things that were announced in this. Hold on.
fell into the hole.
So first off, I don't want to. I'm gonna go between Chris Davis and Brad here. People do those randomly generated quests mainly if they're looking for something that it gives them. I think one of the things that this game's going to have is similar to No Man's Sky is, oh, I need X number of resources to do this. There's some new component for my ship, because we haven't talked about the fact that this game has fully customizable shipbuilding that I
That's
can't
some
afford
exciting
or I
shit.
can't get, and I need 5,000 metatite ore. Well, shit, I don't have that much. Oh, here's a quest that if I go to this planet and do this thing, this guy will give me 3,000. That's over halfway there. I'm gonna do this randomly generated quest that gets me that thing. That's one thing. Secondly, Brad, I'm watching the gameplay right now. I think you're way like overestimate, like you're saying like, oh, the guys don't react. Every single person this guy's shooting, they're like, shaking and getting hit and like actually
Some of them,
reacting
but
to
It
every
kind of
single
makes
shot.
me think of the Killzone sequels when I watch that
Brad,
combat.
Brad, go
No.
watch that again. I'm
Yeah.
I've
literally
watched a
watching it
bunch.
right now, Brad.
Guys, everybody.
Well, but I'm
There-
just saying, like the way Brad describes it, to me, it sounds like they get hit and then they don't make any movement and they just keep, but every single bullet I'm seeing every person get hit by, they're reacting to. One guy didn't react as much because he was running for cover, which anyway, that's besides the point. Like I said,
I mean, that's
the
part of
shipbuilding
it,
is one
right?
thing.
That's part of it. When they hit a programmed animation, if they no longer react to gunfire, I think that's like a sign
And
of
maybe
like
that's
kind
one
of
of the
weak
things they're
gunplay.
working on.
But the thing is, it's like when like Metal Gear Solid improves like the gunplay or something. It's not. It's better. Fallout 4 feels better than Fallout 3. Skyrim feels better than Morrowind. They got better, but they never got to the point where it could be like Destiny that says, dude, I just play it because it's fun to fucking shoot things, Like I don't think they're ever going to get to that level, and they're going to need some sort of progression, some sort of system, something that keeps you going for 100, 200 hours, whatever, 1,000 planets, and
You're right.
maybe it looks more competent than I'm saying, but I don't think it looks like this is
That's
okay
fine.
just being a
So-
real-time shooter good.
So that's fine. All right, so let's move on from the one aspect of this we've talked about for so long. Like I said, fully customizable shipbuilding. It looks insane how much they were showing that you could do with these ships.
That's
I mean,
maybe the
I
most
liken
exciting
it to the
part,
gummy
actually.
ships of Kingdom Hearts, but I mean, I'm not wrong. It just looks a lot better. You're literally taking components and putting them wherever you want and manipulating them and making whatever style. Obviously, you could also say something like Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts, but you have, a base of a ship and you're literally just building it with whatever components you have available, it seems.
And the cool thing about
to
that
make
is
it really
you then get to like walk around inside of that ship that you've
Yeah.
built and fly it around
and
space,
fly
which is
it
cool.
Yeah.
in
You
space.
can hire people to be
Yes,
in your
thank
ship,
you,
which
Brett.
is cool.
Another great point. I love the fact that they talked about not only with the ships, but also with the base building. When you're going to be getting ships so big that you can hire people to man the aspects of your ship. And stuff like that. How deep is that system going to go? I don't know, but it's an interesting concept that maybe you can meet. I want to say it's going to be bigger than it is. That maybe you can meet someone who's like a good mechanic, and then you hire them on your ship, and maybe your ship doesn't break down or something. You know what I'm saying? There's lots of things you could have. Oh, maybe I have to pay X amount of scrap to repair my ship whenever I land at a station. But if I have that mechanic, he keeps my ship in better shape or something. There's lots of stuff that you can do very easily.
And there's space battles. So like
Mhm.
having that sort of control over the customization of your ship, you feel like you have ownership over that ship and the way it can maybe perform in combat, which is the kind of thing, that sort of rich progression, this shipbuilding feeding into combat is what makes it exciting. And I'm not as convinced that, the pointing and shooting at 40 dudes in a research facility has that sort of same effect. That's all.
Sure. Another thing they talked about was base building, which is something that a lot of people had problems with in Fallout 4. I'm watching the footage of it. It's really reminding me of something like Subnautica or something like that, where you're
Yeah, a little
building
bit.
individual components. It seems like they have like wind farms. They're building these like I don't know what the technical term for them. They actually do exist, but they're those like wind propeller things that are like
Turbine?
cylindrical. Yeah, thank you. It's like a turbine that catches the wind, but it seems like you're building that to power your base. And like I said, it very much makes me think of Subnautica. That you have lots of. It looks like you can build storage units for potentially storing minerals or something like that. And like the habs are very. I mean, the reason I think of it like going from Fallout, you're just building a little shack on Earth. Who cares? But when you're building something in space, you need it to be
It looks like
very resistant. So it's a lot
it
of
looks
them
like
are
it's going to be
circular.
borderline. It's going to be like borderline survival-esque.
Yeah, potentially.
Which honestly is those are the aspects that I find to be a bit more exciting, I guess, than just kind of like the Fallout or like Elder Scrolls-ness of the game. This game does seem really ambitious, and I don't
Nick,
know
what
how
Bethesda game that comes out like this isn't?
true, but like you got to. I mean, at some point, I feel like you got to give them credit for like this is the first like this is not an Elder Scrolls game. It's not a Fallout game. It's a brand new IP. They're making some bold choices, I think, too, in terms of like it's a sci-fi game that's not steeped in like. It seems like it's more grounded, which I like. Like it seems like
it's in space.
It's like,
Nick.
well,
I do have a concern that I feel like some of my favorite, most memorable moments from an Elder Scrolls game or a Fallout game are when they're not taking themselves too seriously. The more humorous stuff, like the Dark Brotherhood quest lines, and Elder
those
Scrolls.
things are definitely going to be
They'll
there.
have that.
Like,
oh, okay, but you're saying more grounded, more serious. Maybe there'll be less.
no,
like,
I'm not even trying
funny,
to say more
humor,
serious.
silly moments.
I'm just saying there's more emphasis on like human exploring the galaxy kind of thing, and less about
you don't
like
want aliens.
no. Fuck off, Brad.
That's another good point. Is are there aliens?
It needs. Like, I feel like it needed something to separate itself from like Mass Effect because I feel like it's going to get inevitably compared itself to like the fact that this feels like you feel it looks like you're like a NASA astronaut.
NASA
obviously,
punk, baby.
I mean, it looks like it's steeped in like NASA technology and like technology that we as human beings on Earth are familiar with, and that gives it its own personality that I think separates it from things like Mass Effect. I think that's really cool. I know a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, no alien species," which we don't know yet. People are making a lot of assumptions.
We don't know the actual storyline of what this game is. All we know is that you're in space in the year 2330 exploring a bunch of systems that humans have colonized. It could be a first contact story. It could be something else entirely.
You could be the first one to fuck an alien.
You could.
You could.
That's going to be one of the first mods when it gets on Steam.
I'll bet the world's biggest hot dog that there is an alien in this fucking game.
Well, I mean, we see aliens in the footage.
I don't know if you can fuck it. No, I'm talking about like a humanoid alien, like not like a dinosaur looking alien or like that little bug creature that's crawling around. I'm talking like a humanoid. Okay, that's kind of like a lady. I could fuck that. You know what I mean? Like that, like a sorry. You know what I mean? Like they're that kind of alien. I bet you exists in this game. They're just not showing it because they gotta hold some stuff close to the chest.
Basically, what Nick is saying is that it's okay if there's aliens if they're hot humanoid.
That's what he's saying.
Hey,
yes.
Are the people who are upset about the lack of aliens not upset because they can't? There's no aliens to fuck? Because I guarantee you, like most of them that are upset, that's what they're upset about.
Too much Mass Effect, Nick. This is serious, grounded NASA punk. Okay, good American white astronauts like you want.
Fuck off, Brad. God, you. This is 2 weeks in a row where you've just a character assassination like crazy. Like fuck off.
I can boot him off the show if you want.
It's always me falling victim to this shit. Anyways, I think we've talked enough about Starfield.
Oh, we are gonna move on. I just want to say, Crispy wanted to be here. Something came up. Yes. He's sad that there's no seamless space travel, surface to space travel. Right. He wanted to be more like No Man's Sky. No, there's not. They've confirmed that there's not.
Confirmed? Okay.
He said,
you know what?
That's
valid.
It's valid.
I wonder if that would have. Oh my god.
Part of the magic of the space travel is launching into space, and that's a big part of the dream. And that opinion is valid, even if I don't think that was ever going to be in a Bethesda game.
My one question I have, and we'll never know the answer to this, is if they do you think it was like if they had sacrificed 1,000 planets, do you think seamless space travel would have been more realistic?
Yeah, I think maybe. I think if it was like one solar system, maybe 8 planets or some shit, I think it could have been a very different game. And honestly, I kind of want that game. But maybe they looked at Outer Worlds and they were like, well, Maybe we need to go bigger than
Can-
that. Who
can I
knows? I
ask-
don't know.
I haven't been paying attention to this discourse about 1,000 planets really, but
Good.
is
How
the
can you avoid it?
logical argument that's going around here that you are going to be able to go and land on 1,000 planets?
Yes,
That
that's
is
what they
what they
said.
That's
said.
fucking absurd.
That's what they said.
And it's going to
No,
be a
they
lot
said
of.
that there's 1,000 planets in the end. That doesn't
No.
mean you're going to be able to land
No,
on
they
them.
said they're explorable.
Yes,
Mhm.
1,000 planets that you can land on, 100%. That is what they said.
They said land on,
There's
explore.
But there's things called gas giants, and then there's like
That's-
Well,
we
yeah.
only have 2 planets in this solar system that we live in that we can
sure.
actually land on and be safely live on, relatively
Chris Davis,
speaking.
this is a different solar system. Thank you very much. So
I'm
let's
just saying,
not worry
there's
about those details.
It's
Okay,
going to be a lot of
all right.
resources. It's going to be a lot of randomly procedurally generated stuff, and that's fine. It's better than shooting probes at planets, a la Mass Effect 2. So,
Hey,
I
there will
think-
be 1,000 planets you can walk on, Chris Davis. There'll probably be 4,000 that are gas giants that you can fly
There you
by
go.
or
I
something.
think
Get
Chris
this-
Davis has it right. I think of those 1,000 planets, there probably are going to be some that you just can't physically land on.
I think
he
the
said,
majority of them you shouldn't be able to physically land on if you do the math.
Okay, now you're just being a nerd.
All right.
Thank you.
And on that note,
I'm kidding.
you know what? I think, at the end of the day, we've expressed some skepticism or some concerns, but I think at the end of the day, we're all excited to try this, right?
I want
it's
this
a-
to be really good.
I think we all want this to be good, and it's just
I am over
the
Fallout.
odds-
I got really sick of it.
the odds might be stacked against them right now, but I think there's always a chance that they're going to surprise us. So you know what?
Brad,
Bring
what
it
if this
on.
game has space boots of blinding speed?
That exact thought popped into my head when I was watching
And
this.
I'm not surprised. All right, on that note, guys, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have a few games to talk about. We're going to do the Quarry, we're going to do Monster Hunter Sunbreak, answer a couple questions, and wrap up with the 4-player minute. So if you're watching us live, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Thank you for sticking with us. There are a couple games we wanted to talk about tonight. I know this is a very news-heavy show, but there's also been some new releases and some things of interest we want to mention. I wanted to start, I guess, with a new release from last week, and I've already played all the way through this game. In fact, I finished it last night. I finished the Quarry last night. This is Supermassive's next game. And you may know them as a team.
I'm also playing this right now.
Oh, you are currently playing it.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yes.
How far are you in terms of chapter? I guess there's 10 chapters total.
Oh, I think I'm in chapter 3 or even.
Okay.
Have you gotten
or
to the
maybe
Quarry
4.
yet?
No.
So it's funny you say that. It is really
I
funny
don't know
you
what
say
that means.
No, I know you're making a joke, but one of the things I wanted to point out about this game, and I think this is going to be one of those things that's like a make it or break it for certain people. But also, real quick, this is the game. This is Supermassive, the team that made Until Dawn, and more recently they've been doing these smaller anthology horror games. They did Man of Medan, House of Ashes, and Little Hope, which have had varying degrees of critical success, I think. Everyone keeps telling me to play House of Ashes. It's the one that I haven't tried yet. And they say that's the best, but I've been kind of...
It's the
for
best
longest-
of problematic games.
Yes.
They're all okay at best.
But I have also been of the opinion that like Until Dawn was on a different level. I really, really, really enjoyed Until Dawn, and while those games shared elements of Until Dawn, they all felt kind of like they were working on a much smaller budget, and that came across in the animation, the writing, the presentation, just in a lot of different ways.
I think
Quarry,
one of the big things about those games is that they're also designed as like multiplayer experiences that you play
Yeah.
with others, and I think it led to a lot of like really awkward moments and cuts, especially if you're playing by yourself.
but this game is also doing that same thing.
In that regard, I think if that's true, they have improved on that. I'd say.
Yeah. Going back to what you started saying, Nolan, or your joke, but have you gotten to the Quarry yet? The big thing that I think is separating this game for me from those anthology games is that one, I think pretty quickly it becomes apparent that this is kind of like, as far as scope goes, this is kind of a return to form as far as like it's more closely resembles Until Dawn than any of those smaller games. It's a bigger game. There's a higher production value. That's pretty obvious right from the get-go. But the other way in which that comes across is the pacing, because those other games were a lot smaller. You can probably finish each one of them in like 4 hours, 5 hours maybe tops, I think. This was twice that length or whatever. So I streamed this on Friday night. I played the first 3 hours of it, and by the time I finished it, while I was really enjoying myself, I hadn't even reached the point where I would say the quote-unquote shit hit the fan.
It starts slow. This game starts slow.
It does start slow, but like it does, to me, it doesn't suffer because right out of the, I don't know if you feel this way, Brad, but like I like almost all these characters. I'm struggling to think of a character in this cast that I just don't like.
You know what? That just says a lot about you, Nick.
I mean, I think Jacob's a Chad. You know what I mean? This is playing into the 80s camp horror trope. This is very much like a love letter to, like, I would say, right out of the gate, because of the location, it feels kind of like a love letter to like Friday the 13th, right? Because all the characters are camp counselors who have just spent the summer counseling, and now all the kids have left the camp, and then they're about to leave, and then something happens, and they get stuck, so they have to spend an extra night at the camp, right? So they're all it's a bunch of camp counselors. So Friday the 13th, Brad.
We just view these people as different. And you view them as likable. I view them as people I can't wait to get murdered. But
no. You're misunderstanding me. I think I too see them as characters I can't wait to get murdered. Dude.
No, they're not like actively. I mean, in Until Dawn, there were some characters that were like, dude, you are the worst. Like, people that you can't wait to see die. There were some bad, annoying people.
And I feel the same way about some of the characters in this game too, but I feel like less of them are like that. I feel like there's a couple characters I could
maybe
immediately that are like, okay, this person's definitely is like in
they
any
try to give
movie,
all these characters like a human side or whatever.
Yeah, and I think they mostly succeed. I like
Sure.
all these characters, even the ones that I find to be obnoxious. They feel real in a way that I wasn't expecting. Like Jacob, we've all known a Jacob. He's a Chad, but like he also has like a surprising like human side that comes across in an interesting way.
He cries at one point early on.
He does cry.
Because some chick made out with some other dude.
When they're playing Truth or Dare.
And he cried. That was a bit much. Hey,
so I'm a little confused. So the camp is in a quarry?
Oh God. I've not been to a quarry yet, but I imagine I end up there. Can I say that the reason I think House of Ashes...
I understand I'm making a joke, and I know that they are the quarry, like it's not an actual place. I just want to make sure that's clear.
It's clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Go on, Brad.
The reason I think House of Ashes, which is, a game with flaws and gets incredibly stupid towards the end. The reason I do think it is better and a more successful game than the first two Dark Pictures game is because they do spend a good amount of time on character development. Like I think this game does, even though it is, shorter than this game. I think it's longer than like 4 hours, but they do spend, because it's sort of like the Marines, they're, a group of Marines going into a place and getting fucked up by monsters, right? But during the quiet times, you have one soldier talking to another, and that's where you get a little bit of character development. I think this type of game really benefits from that because when you get to the quick time events, you get to the people getting killed, it means a little bit more. And in those first two Dark Pictures games, you just didn't care about the characters at all. There was like no development. It's like, who even are these people? So
yeah, I
don't mind that this game is starting slow. But
yeah, that's what I'm trying to get across is that like despite the fact that like it does have an incredibly slow start. In fact, I didn't want to go too far into the story to capture footage because I didn't want to spoil kind of like the hook of what this game ultimately ends up being. But I picked a fairly early chapter, and I was like, oh, I forgot this is, footage wise, there's not a lot exciting that's happening here. And like, there's no monsters in this footage, but there's some interesting explorations. There's some fun character development stuff happening, and that stuff is kind of trickled out at a pretty steady clip. So when you get to those moments where you have to make sudden decisions, like QuickTime events and moral choices and whatnot, like some of them are like juicy and legitimately hard to do. And I will say this, I've talked a big game over the years about my experience with Until Dawn and how I managed to get everybody out of that cabin at the end, miraculously. I did not have that experience with this game. In fact, I had a moment where it was a decision and I whiffed it because I was frozen because they both seemed like a terrible choice that I had to make, which is what is exciting to me. That's what makes this that's kind of the appeal of this game. But those moments really only work I think when you care about the characters, and I care about most of the characters in this game. So like, I and there are situations where you have to make a choice, and there is an option to just not do anything. But if you don't do anything, sometimes the consequences can be dire, and sometimes that could actually be the right choice to make. But you don't really have a way of knowing. You just kind of have to like try to predict, try to like rationally think through like what would be the benefit of me not making a choice here. And I froze.
Can I ask you a quick mechanics question because I don't quite understand it yet? The hold your breath moments, where you're like seeing a scene and it's like you have to choose when you want to like stop holding your breath, which just means get up and run or whatever. Right. I don't actually know. Am I supposed to be looking at like the animation of like say a creature who's looking around? Or because there's like a red bar and I don't know what I'm actually supposed to be looking at to decide when to let go. And I don't even know when I fuck it up or not because the feedback is, it's just a scene. Something I will say this, out.
That's like my least favorite mechanic in this game because I don't feel like it's much of a mechanic at all. You're really you're just watching this red haze, which indicates that there is danger near you. And as soon as that red haze fades away, it means the danger's gone and you can let go.
The red haze completely?
Yeah. Yeah, if you hold
so
it long
that's not even a mechanic. Why did they even put the red thing there?
I do think so. Usually in situations like that, like you'll see the bar going down, and there's that red haze, and the red haze will eventually go away. But there's usually like a good 5 or 6 seconds after that in which the red haze is gone. But the moment you let off that button, you stop holding your breath and you leave that situation. I do think it's possible to miss time when you act, because usually like you're in hiding, so like if you let go, you stop holding your breath and you come out of your hiding spot. I do think it's possible to mistime that. I think you could potentially do it too soon or too late, but I never fucked it up. I never fucked it up.
But how do you even know?
As soon as the red haze is gone, I let go every time. And I always got out of it.
I thought it was based on like people like looking around and do it when they're not looking at you or something. Okay, well that's just a bad mechanic.
It does seem like a bad mechanic, or at least like that's why I say it's my least favorite mechanic because I never once hit a fail state in that. But the other stuff that they've always done pretty well, which I think is like having to do QuickTime events and having to make character-based decisions, work really well in this game. And I don't really want to spoil like what happens in this game, honestly, because that's a big hook. Like Until Dawn had a really big twist that kind of like changed the direction of that story, and I would never want to spoil that. It's kind of the same thing here. But if you enjoyed Until Dawn, I think this is an easy recommendation. It worked out pretty well, except for the end. I whiffed it. But I was so tempted to go back and like do a chapter select and play that ending again and try to make the right decision, but I didn't do it. I resisted because I have my story now. So I'm just gonna live with it.
Is it?
I'll wait a week. And
did
watch
it happen?
YouTube.
Was the information completely clear to you? Did you know what you were doing?
Oh yeah. You had two choices, and they both seemed like I was like, oh my god, I don't know what I want to do. But I was like, I'm pretty sure if I don't make a decision here, I'm fucking myself. And I froze, and I let the timer run out, and sure enough, I fucked myself.
Say no. Okay. interested.
But there's like
curious to
3 or
keep
4 of
going.
those that happen kind of near the end of the game. So, but like there's also situations where I intentionally didn't make a choice and it ended up being the right decision or a right decision. So like I don't know. I went back and played a few things early on in the game to kind of see how things changed, and some of those things were pretty noticeable and significant. Some were minor, but you know, it does seem like there's a lot of possibility for a lot of changes or differences between playthroughs. So I do recommend it.
So
Also,
at
they
any
do the
point in the quarry, do you punch like a boulder?
fuck off, Nolan.
I think that's a
don't even
fair
know what that.
question. I would expect to find boulders in a quarry.
There
So,
are
like-
they talk about what the quarry actually is, and you know what? You should just play the game, Nolan.
I just want to say they've
Is it a
announced
landslide
more.
moment.
They've announced more Dark Pictures games.
You know what?
Are you gonna hop back in because you've been kind of throwing that series under the bus a little bit without having finished it.
I mean, here's the crazy thing. The second game in that series called Little Hope is it is so blatantly like riffing on Silent Hill, and I just can't help but think to myself, like, if a supermassive take on Silent Hill isn't even enough to keep me going.
It's not Silent Hill. Look, it's bad. That's why you didn't like the first half of that game. That's why.
It's not even that I didn't like it.
It has nothing to do with Silent Hill.
I wasn't hooked. Like, this game hooks you really quickly because of the characters. I didn't like any of the characters in that game, and I didn't like them in Man of Medan either. And if you say it's better, if it's better in House of Ashes, then maybe I'll give it another shot because I like Supermassive a lot. I like Supermassive a lot.
I will say the opening, like, opening horror scene of this game with the two characters that are gonna die, of course, because they're in the opening scene or whatever, that sort of scene. The dude Malia would not stop laughing her ass off because he didn't look at anybody. He just kept looking down, and I don't know if it was a tech issue or maybe that was just something.
It's very, it's the resulting animations, like this game actually has some pretty good character animations, like facial animations and interactions.
When they zoom in on the one jokester guy, sometimes it just looks really frightening. Sometimes
every once in a while, there's one or two characters that like you said, they turn their head a little weird, or they smile too big, and it's like, oh,
or their eyes go a little off.
A little crazy eyes, but
you want that's the good kind of bad. Okay. That I wouldn't want it any other way in a Supermassive game, if you will.
Sure, I do think this is a really good looking game though. Even as far as like character animations go, one thing is funny that you'll be walking around an environment with your flashlight or whatever. So like when you're moving the analog stick and the character's like looking in the direction that you're tilting the stick, sometimes their head will turn a little too far on their neck. So you're like, I don't think it's supposed to bend that way, but keep it in. I welcome it. Anyways, the Quarry. I'm just here to tell you, if you liked Until Dawn and you have not really enjoyed the House Dark Pictures anthology or whatever the hell it's called, like this is what I've kind of been waiting for since Until Dawn.
Well, let me ask you this question.
These kinds of things.
You know what every single one of these games has? That between chapter, like, framing character, who's just kind of talking in vague lines at you. What is their obsession with that? Like, every single one has that.
I like it as like a story framing tool. Like
but it's just a bunch of vague bullshit and like teasing, like what's gonna happen. It's kind of. I mean, maybe it's their signature style, I guess, but it's.
This one's cool because it's a character. It's a character that's alluded to in the actual story of the game, but she's she's a tarot card reader. So you're finding tarot cards scattered throughout the world, and if you find them, she reads your fortune with the tarot cards, and then gives you the opportunity to like get a really brief glimpse at like a potential moment that's going to happen. So I kind of like the spin on it in this game. But it is definitely in the same vein as what they were doing with the Dark Pictures anthology. I don't even remember what they did. Oh, it was the same guy for Until Dawn, right?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Until Dawn had Peter Stormare,
the doctor. The doctor guy.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's definitely their signature. But you know
Okay.
what? I dig it.
Right? Was that
I-
Until Dawn?
Yeah, that was Until Dawn.
They've
Yeah.
also done other games besides the Dark Pictures, and sometimes I get those confused as well.
Let me ask this question. As someone who's not played any of these supermassive horror games, which
Mhm.
one is the one to go with if you want to
I
make it
mean,
your first experience?
Until Dawn or this, I think, are both great. I mean, they're not
Okay.
related in any way, obviously, but they're both
Yeah.
very similar experiences, and I think they're both great.
I'll say this: you
Okay.
could probably get Until Dawn for pretty fucking cheap. It might even be
That's
PS
true.
Plus or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That's true. I will say this at the end of the day, like the twist, the horror element of the story that comes into focus later, you know, like in the mid to late chapters of the
Easy.
game I know. I'm trying to I like them in both games. I think I prefer the one in Until Dawn. But
Sure.
I like them
But there's
both.
no Oscar winner in this game.
Correct. Who was the Oscar winner in Until Dawn?
Me,
Rami
Rami
Malek.
Malek.
Oh, it's right, Rami Malek. Haha. Yes. Man, Until Dawn was great, man. Yeah, play Until Dawn. Fuck it, Chris Davis.
Okay.
That game's pretty good.
These games are 90% drama, but the skill aspect of them are basically QTE events, right?
QTEs and having to make tough choices in a
Choices.
short amount of
Okay.
time.
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be derivative. I'm just trying to understand the scope of these games. So
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
where I'm at in the game, is it going to be truth or dare? Because nothing horror is happening yet. Really.
Yeah. But they're getting you familiar with the characters, and that's great. All right, Brett, I know you're dying to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Tell
well,
us
I mean, I'm
about-
not dying. I just didn't want you to wipe it from existence in every
I
tweet
didn't.
and comment that you made about the podcast.
Hey, man, we're gonna talk about so much Sunbreak after the game is already out. I was just trying to give people a,
Sure.
we're talking about other things.
I might take a
tonight.
month off when that happens.
I mean, look,
A month off to play
It's-
Sunbreak.
it's
No,
the new
a month
Monster
off,
Hunter
so I don't have to be on the
expansion.
podcast and listen about it.
I know.
I mean, Chris Davis, you'll find the worst part to finally pick up the series, the worst time to finally pick up the series, and once you do, you'll be a Monster Hunter fan. And you'll look back on this comment and you'll be ashamed of your words and deeds. Monster Hunter, it's a very big deal. It's a very successful. I think Monster Hunter World is still Capcom's best-selling game to date. So, but yeah, Sunbreak is the new expansion that's coming out at the end of the month. During the Capcom event the other day, they announced a demo for the following day, and that's what I've been playing. Is this Sunbreak demo, and it's exciting to me because there's new monsters in the demo that you've never fought. I think in this one I'm going to fight Astalos, who is a returning flagship from a previous game, but he is, you can fight him in the demo. And then they also have the flagship of this game as like the expert, extreme danger hunt. That he's the Malzeno, who's the flagship of Sunbreak. And he is like super tuned up, just like Magnamalo was in the Rise demo. And you have a 15-minute time limit. It's like really fucking hard. And he's not going to be that hard in the final game, but they do this with all of the Monster Hunter demos. I'm not fighting him because I don't actually want that my first interaction with him to kind of be spoiled via a demo. I'd probably get my ass kicked anyways. But, I want to wait till the game because, he's the flagship of the game. That should be like a big moment. So I just do the Astalos hunt. The good news is the Astalos hunt is on one of the new maps that they announced as
like
part
the
of
map.
the presentation, the jungle, which is kind of like, it's like an island, beachy around the sides, and then a jungle, kind of canopy-ish in the center. It is one of the returning maps. They do this cool thing where they take like old, maps from the series, but then they build them in the way that they are in Rise, where everything's explorable and it's not just little paths connecting little arenas, which is what basically old Monster Hunter was. And it makes it very nostalgic for people who've seen the parts of these maps, but in a fully realized, explorable way now. So that's cool. The jungle's back. And, I'm fighting Astalos, which is a new monster. He's pretty difficult. This is hard. I've carted so much while playing this. This is a master rank expansion, so it is going to be harder. Also, I'm not really custom. You're picking between presets. You can try all of the different all of the 14 weapons, but they're presets. You can't go into the skills, you can't go into the equipment, you can't really tweak anything. You could switch around some switch skills, but that's the main reason I wanted to try out, is because one of the big new things in the Sunbreak expansion is not just that there's a lot of new switch skills and silkbind attacks, but that they have this new silkbind swap mechanic where basically you can have different loadouts and you can swap between them on the fly in battle.
Including
And there's even
weapons?
like a not weapons. These are like your
Oh.
skill loadouts, like
Okay.
your like equipable skills and silkbind attacks. So you can have a loadout of one set and do like a button combination, and you switch, and there's even like a dodge you can do after. And you see me doing that in this footage where like I've been playing a lot of Switch Axe when I played Rise again on Steam Deck, the PC version, to get ready for the Sunbreak. So I'm messing around with Switch Axe here, and they have a cool new counter where if you land it properly, it fills up your sword gauge, like it amps up your sword gauge so you can do your cool discharge or whatever. But you need meter to be able to do that, because the longer you're holding the counter, your sword meter is draining. So what I do is I have a switch skill that can charge up that sword meter, but it's in the same slot as the skill that does the big counter. So you have to do like your loadout swap. I mean, that's kind of like the whole idea here, is that you're constantly switching between these loadouts, because one skill kind of like complements another, but they're in the same slot. So you have to do the swap. So I'm constantly doing that throughout this fight. It's a cool mechanic. It's going to offer a lot of like depth to the skill system, where before you were kind of like, well, this skill seems kind of cool, but this one's just a lot better. And now it's more like, well, which skill actually makes this skill that was better even better? What complements it? It feels like you're kind of creating a build, if you will. And what that's going to lead to is, maybe one, lance user who plays the lance completely different than another, and that's cool. I like that.
Hey Brad,
did
I'm
mess with-
watching your footage here, and I'm hearing you
Yeah.
talk about the skill system, and it's making me concerned that I'm fundamentally misunderstanding the skill system in this game.
Yeah, I mean,
Having
I kind of expected that.
I do like the same like 3 or 4 attacks kind of most of the time.
Yeah.
Is that
I mean,
normal?
because in Rise you just sort of set them and you can't really switch between them. Also, you probably didn't unlock all your skills. There are various methods you go through to unlock your different switch skills, and you probably didn't do that. One is like you have to make a certain amount of like a particular type of weapon, and another is you have to do like a specific quest that's optional on the sides once you get to like high rank, which you're not even in high rank right now. So yeah, you unlock skills as you play through various quests and stuff. And now you have like 5 different slots where you can like, equip them and then switch to a different loadout where you have 5 other skills set. And
Okay.
yeah, again, one, you probably didn't engage with it too much, and two, it is different here. They're adding a lot more here, and now it kind of becomes like this crazy thing where managing your skills is just as important as kind of hunting the monster properly. And it's absolutely, you don't have to engage with this system. You can even use the swap dodge, which is like a really cool like dodge where you can has a lot of iframes, and even have the second loadout be the exact same as the first. So you're not even really messing around with your skills. You're just kind of pick the skills that you like, that you're comfortable with, and that's the way you fight the monster. You can absolutely fight them just like you did in Rise that way. But for the people who want to go deep, it's cool to have those options. Like, because for me, I hated kind of having to not use one skill because I preferred another, and now I don't have to make that choice anymore, and it's actually kind of cool. And it'll change the way I kind of build my characters. And it's cool. The map's cool. Like the music's cool. This is a Western. You're no longer in Kimura. They kind of went west, and now all the monsters are kind of like inspired by like like Dracula, like the Dracula and Frankenstein and the Wolfman. Like the 3 monsters that they've shown so far are, and the flagship is inspired by Dracula, and he has all these bats and he teleports and stuff, and it's cool. So I'm excited about this game. The new music is really good. Try out this demo. You can play it as much as you want. You could try all 14 weapons. They all have a bunch of new skills.
I'm
Not
purely
like all of
focused
the
on
new
just trying to
skills.
get to this point.
They've shown off like skills in the various like weapon trailers that people kind of expected to be in the demo and they're not all there. So like there's some skills that we've been looking at. They're like, oh, I can't wait to fucking try that. And we get the demo and they're like, oh, well, they don't even have that one. That's kind of a bummer. But you know, the 2 weeks and the game comes out and I'm excited and I can't wait. And Monster
I will be
Hunter's
ready,
fun,
Brett.
y'all.
Mark
Monster
my
Hunter's fun.
damn words. I will be ready. I'm really enjoying getting back into this game, which is shocking considering I just played this game last year and I've never been.
It's cool.
Like the
It's
biggest
cool.
Monster Hunter
I
fan,
do
but this is fun.
understand. I do understand that where you're at right now, where you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get to high rank, is kind of annoying in Rise. If
It's
you ever
just
go back
it's
to
just a
World
mash
2,
right now.
it's
I'm just
not like
what,
that.
Like what do I need to do to get there as quickly as possible?
It's a weird holdover from the past, and it awkwardly made its way back into Rise, and it's stupid. But once you get into high rank, it'll all make more sense. Your gear will make more sense, and you'll get there. It doesn't take long. I got through Nara
it's
in
pretty
20
good.
hours.
This means I won't be flailing about like an idiot when I first boot up Sunbreak. I'll be primed and ready.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, unless y'all have any surprises for me impressions wise, I didn't see any in the doc. So I know Chris Davis, he had a few things, but you said you do it in 4-player minutes. So
Well, I mean, those games I was going to talk about from the various presentations over the past week.
okay,
I am neck deep in Horizon 2 right now. I've put in
As am
60
I.
hours.
okay. Not that deep. I'm not that deep yet.
And Nick, I remember you mentioning that you weren't going to talk about the game until you were flying a robot pterodactyl.
I think I've just kind of decided I'm not going to talk about it again until I've finished it.
Okay.
But yeah, the pterodactyl thing was one of the things I was waiting for.
Because I'm 60 hours in and I still have not flown a robot pterodactyl.
All right. Cool. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I've seen a few of them.
Xenoblade Chronicles X?
You could fly around on a fucking pterodactyl, dude. It's dope.
Yeah, 60 hours in.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big game. I'm still enjoying the hell out of that game.
That
But anyway,
being said, I have discovered Mechagodzilla, and he is a fucking bastard.
Wonderful. I'm kind of chipping away at it slowly. I am actively playing it, but I wanted to get through the Quarry. I want to catch up on Monster Hunter, and I'm trying to keep up with Vagrant Story as well. So, you know, a lot of stuff, a lot of juggling going on. All right, so we don't have a lot of questions tonight, which actually might be for the best because we've had a lot to talk about, but I will go over the ones we have. Again, guys, if you're listening at home and you'd like to ask us a question for us to tackle in the community segment, all you have to do is join our Discord at discord.gg/4player. We have a podcast section with a channel called Submit a Question, and I set up threads there every week for the upcoming show. You can just leave them in there, and we'll get to them on the next episode. So this week, our first question comes from Mr. Greentoast. It says, with the recent release of The Quarry, I wanted to ask if you guys were in a horror film, what would you do to ensure that you would be the last one alive?
Get the fuck out.
Just
Get the fuck out. Get in your car and drive away and don't look back.
Well, here, I mean, you think...
It doesn't work like that, dude.
In the
car
Quarry,
doesn't start. Come on.
In the Quarry, they can't leave because one of the main things is their only vehicle that they have is like missing.
They won't drive up the
Not
wall
true.
of the
Not
Quarry.
true. David Arquette could have piled everyone in the back of the Bronco, and that would have been the end of the horror story. But
that is true. David Arquette fucking abandons everyone.
David Arquette knew what he was doing. He got the fuck out.
But you know, I hindsight is 2020, right? So like, it's easy to say I would have just, even if I didn't have a car, I would just hit the road and walk until I was away from that place. But you know, in the moment before you know all this crazy shit's happening, you don't know that stuff. So, you know, I would never go anywhere alone. That's for damn sure.
Never go off on your own.
Never. And also, I'll take it one step further. I won't go anywhere with only one other person. You'll go in groups of 3 at minimum.
Because too much scream, dude.
If someone's like really scratching their neck and freaking out, and like, don't go off alone with them.
I would also never assume that any odd behavior like what Nolan just pointed out is normal.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I like, even though I know chances like horror movies aren't real, quote unquote, but like, you know, don't give it the benefit of the doubt. Just assume everything is on the table.
No, but Nick, most of the time, in horror stories, horror fiction doesn't actually exist. No one knows what a zombie is. They're just like, what's wrong with this guy? Why is he trying to attack me? You know,
I mean,
horror
that's
fiction
fair.
doesn't exist, so you don't
in
have the knowledge of I need to escape this
I,
situation because that guy's a vampire. You don't
in
know
the
what a
Quarry
vampire is.
specifically, they reference movies like horror movies in conversation that make me realize, okay, these horror movies do exist in this universe. They've seen these fucking things, and they're still making terrible decisions.
Well, here's the other thing.
That's
is
just a
that
post Scream movie.
if you
That's
can't
true.
get the fuck out, then you should just be barricading down with everyone in your group in the exact same room.
They're
and
already
you just-
inside. They're already inside.
I mean, I'm just saying,
mean-
survival in numbers is higher.
I mean, quite honestly, the same reaction I have every time I play one of these games or watch one of these movies is there's too much time and effort being put into splitting your group up, and that. And I know it's one of those situations.
Around, Nick.
Like if it's like I have to go into the basement to turn the generator on, everybody go. Everybody get in the basement. Just go together. Stop this splitting up shit. Nobody give me a flashlight and send me on my merry way. Like that's not how this needs to work.
Nick, I'm not gonna let you watch me pee. I'm doing it by myself.
Watch each other pee. Watch each other poop.
Set
I
up a
don't
bucket
care.
in the corner.
Nobody
just turn
leaves
around.
the room. Yeah. I mean, I safety in numbers should be it should be what we've learned from every horror movie ever made. Safety in numbers.
If it's a good horror story, everybody's going to die anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's true. There needs to be a hefty body count. You just got to hope that you're there to ensure that it's not you. So, follow the rules. If you've seen Scream, you know what I'm talking about. Follow those rules and you should be fine. I think I'd be fine.
You're fine until you ask for too much money and they say no thanks, and then you have to go be in a Twisted Metal TV show.
God damn, that's a low blow, Brad. But true, I suppose. All right. Sorry. Next question. Let's get on. Let's see. The Drunken Merchant asks, would you all prefer remakes like The Last of Us or Resident Evil 4 be along the lines of A Link Between Worlds, where these characters revisit old areas in a remixed fashion?
Of course, yeah.
He says, I don't care why Leon has to go back to undisclosed Europe. Just have him do it.
I
It's
mean,
funny
if you're asking, do you want a remake or like a really like inventive and smart sequel? Yeah, I'd take the sequel.
Because that is an interesting. I find it interesting that he's lumping A Link Between Worlds into the remake category when it certainly feels like a sequel.
I mean, it is a sequel, basically.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it absolutely is a sequel. But like, I get what he's saying. Like, as opposed to just doing a remake, find a way to tell that story again with similar in the same location, but like mix things up could be interesting.
Well, I think it's kind of one of the things, and I'm not trying to. I don't really know a whole lot about the Resident Evil 4 remake and stuff like that. And I was briefly announced I saw something. I know, but I think to my knowledge, they were saying that they're trying to add new mechanics and new things. And I think from what I gathered, they could all be talking out their asses, but it does seem like they are trying to do that. They are trying to add more than just kind of, let's compare it to The Last of Us Part 1, where it seems like they are just like literally.
It's a modernization,
basically. Yeah, this, it seems like they are actually trying to change the game to make it better, while the core story is the same.
They have already confirmed that the Resident Evil 4 remake, the opening village section takes place at night, for example.
Yeah, which is in a way it's a remix. Like it's tackling similar like a similar iconic moment in a different.
Except in
light.
that game,
Literally,
you go back there and it's whatever.
But you know what? I mean, I think it's important to point out that like everybody likes to throw the word remake around a lot, and it's not cut and dry anymore. Like there's remasters, there's remakes, there's modernizations. That's why I think so many projects don't even bother using the word, or they try to avoid using a word like that in the title, because it's like using that word to describe the project kind of maybe undercuts or oversells what they're trying to do in the first place. So I don't know. I mean, I do like that idea of like remixes, which honestly Resident Evil 2 remake, although the gap between Resident Evil 2 OG and the remake was so large that it doesn't even feel like a remix. It feels like a complete different thing. But it was in a way a remix because they didn't use the same floor plan of Resident Evil of the Raccoon City Police Department. It was very recognizable, and certain rooms obviously had kind of a very similar layout, so you recognize things. But it also felt different enough that it felt completely fresh.
They remixed it on purpose to kind of play with your expectations.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Like Resident Evil 4, we talked a lot about this last week, but like I think the best thing that Resident Evil 4 remake could do is justify its existence by capturing the essence of the original, but also changing it in significant ways to make it feel like its own thing.
Serve as a reimagining, really, more than just like
which is they've already used the word reimagining several times, which, you know, my only concern there is that like Resident Evil 4, like Brad said, is a pretty big game. Like there's a lot of stuff there, so I would hate to see. I'm scared that some of the stuff, instead of reimagining certain things, is just going to be dropped completely, which I would rather obviously just
inevitable.
I think I could beat that game pretty quick.
God damn it, Nolan. Yes, Nolan, we've seen you do it. You bastard. But yeah. I mean, I think the important thing to remember is every project is different, and it really just kind of depends on what are the goals of the project. I obviously don't think I want every remake to be like The Last of Us Part 1. But I think The Last of Us Part 1's approach is you know, a viable approach, especially considering I don't think they were ever trying to reinvent the wheel. It just sucks that they're trying to get $70 out of us for it. Okay, our next question comes from Gigamir, and he asks, how do you expect Starfield to handle fast travel?
Slowly.
Well, it depends on in what context we're talking about fast travel. Like, are we talking like galactic travel? Or are we talking about local? Like, what are we doing?
I think fast travel is. I mean, if you're talking local, first of
They'll
all,
have little space stations on the planet. You can you pull up a map, you choose one, you go there. Likewise, when it comes to traveling to other planets, you're going to pull up a map of the planet, then you'll zoom out to the system, then you'll zoom out to the thing, and they kind of showed it to an extent when they were showing like, all this different stuff. So you'll just pick a system, you'll go to the planet, there'll be a marker for the quest that you have, you'll zoom in on it, and then you click the station you want to land at.
You'll probably sit in the cockpit of your custom created ship, which is cool, and determine whether you want to fast travel straight to a planet, or do you want to go into the solar system to do some like space flight, I'm guessing maybe.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's going to be a little weird is the space flight going to feel a little like disjointed, since you load into it from like the surface of something.
I mean, I think all of
travel is going to be fast travel, and landing is going to be fast travel or load screen. So there's just going to be a point where you're like, well, I guess I'm out in space now. I can't actually fly anywhere meaningful, but I'm out in space to do dogfights, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope it's going to be a little weird.
Yeah.
That part's me, but also, you know, hopefully the dogfighting is good enough that like you kind of quickly forget about that, because I hope that dogfighting is good.
The dogfighting looked like not mechanically nice, but visually nice. I don't know what it's like mechanically, but I liked the way they blew up.
Yeah, that's a big question mark. All right, and our last question tonight comes from Haste. Oh, this is actually a question for Crispy. Crispy's not here tonight.
Well, let's answer it. Let's see what we can do.
Well, I don't think we can. It's also kind of a jokey question. He says, "Is Starfield now your permanent hype for the 4-player minute?"
Yes, it is now permanent hype for Crispy.
No, it is his permanent.
I don't think
opposite.
so. Yeah, I think he's kind of bummed.
I think he's hyped to play more No Man's Sky from the sounds of it.
Yeah. You might be right. All right, so guys, again, thank you so much for your questions. If you would like to leave us one for the next show, of course, you can go to discord.gg/4player and find the submit a question channel and leave your post your question in the thread, and we'll get to it next time. So without further ado, let's wrap this show up. Look at this. We're making good time, Brad. You still have 23 minutes left.
4-player minute. Final thoughts.
4-player minute.
Let's just rename them. Let's just rename them to final thoughts.
No,
why? That way you don't have
the
to
branding,
explain
man.
But
people don't like change.
We have to explain the branding every time. The branding sucks.
No, that's the joke.
We're having to explain it to you half the time.
Yeah, it's the
My-
4-player minute. Just
I'm the one who sticks to the
deliver-
plan, Chris Davis.
give us your final fucking thoughts for the
I have
evening.
2 final thoughts and a hype. No, just kidding.
That's fair. It's your minute. Do it.
Oh, I can talk about whatever I want in this minute. By the way, did you know that they're doing another spin-off Castlevania show starring Richter on Netflix? Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that Castlevania would meet success on a fucking television show and nothing else? Christ. No, my final thought is about the NVIDIA leaks and a little bit about the Capcom hacks. And the Capcom hack and, maybe Dragon's Dogma, right? Which we didn't see at E3, but we might see tomorrow. Dragon's Dogma 2. There's certain people in our community, and I think a lot of people on the internet, when they hear the word leak, they immediately think, some nerd in a basement made up a list pre-E3. You can't take any of it seriously. And they just lump all the shit together, whether there's some like truth to it, whether shit's been proven, or people explain that, well, they got this shit from NVIDIA servers or whatever. Here's my point. When you're looking at a list like the NVIDIA list of leaked game titles, you don't look at the big ones or like, of course they're making a Street Fighter 6, right? Which is on the list, right? People look at those and go, oh, this is bullshit. Of course you're expecting those, right? But the thing about the NVIDIA list is not only has there been like fucking, 24 things that have been since confirmed since the list came out. And a lot of them, like God of War going to PC, right? Shortly after it gets announced, right? You could say that, well, Sony was trending in that direction. The point is, you look at the small things that don't make any sense for someone to make up on a list. Like someone predicted a game that I believe came out in 1990 called ActRaiser, maybe the 80s, got a remake. And this was on the list of like, hey, there's going to be an ActRaiser remake. And sure enough, they announced one. That's not something you make up. That's a 40-year-old game. You don't say that there's going to be a random ActRaiser remake. Also on this list, Space Marine 2. Who expected that they were going to as shortly announce a sequel to Space Marine? That is fucking crazy. No one predicts that, okay? You look at other small things like the Tactics Ogre remaster, which finally got announced the other day as Tactics Ogre Reborn. Maybe I'll buy a Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, but you don't pull a Tactics Ogre remaster out of your ass. Same with the Chrono Cross remaster, which again has since been confirmed to come out. Kingdom Hearts 4, when this NVIDIA list dropped, Kingdom Hearts 4 was on this list, and one of the biggest reactions is, because a lot of these things had dates or placeholder dates. People were laughing, right? Because so soon after Kingdom Hearts 3, what they're already going to announce that they're working on Kingdom Hearts 4, that's something they've never done. They're going to release 18 mobile and bullshit Kingdom Hearts games before they announce Kingdom Hearts 4. Sure enough, shortly after they announced Kingdom Hearts 4. At this point, you have to believe it. But also stuff like the GTA Remaster trilogy. That was on the list before that got announced. Crysis 4. People thought that company was basically dead. Sure enough, they're making another Crysis. So, again, look at the small games and stop patronizing the people who reference this list, because there's certain people in our community on the internet. And when I bring up like Dragon's Dogma 2, which was also on the NVIDIA list, also on the Capcom hack, they're like, oh, keep dreaming, Brad. You're just making up bullshit from this magical list. No, this shit, stop it. Stop it. There's a difference.
Don't forget about the Final Fantasy IX remakes on that list.
That's the other thing, right? There's still some things on there that seem crazy, but everything has been confirmed. One of them is a Final Fantasy IX remake. They listed a Tactics Ogre remaster, a Final Fantasy Tactics remaster. Final Fantasy IX said remake. So who knows what that's going to be, but it's on that list.
One of my favorite games of all time, and I would die for that.
So yeah, screw Scud and all those other nerds that are just patronizing me about Dragon's Dogma. It might not be at the thing tomorrow, but
what a troll that will be, though, right?
Yeah, well, it's already been a big troll, honestly, with this little thing that they had at the Capcom event. Yeah, there's a meme where he says, "Hey, remember Dragon's Dogma? That was cool," and then it was over.
Yeah,
but yeah. So that's it. The NVIDIA leaks. That was my 4-player minute. Sorry if that took a little longer, but we had time. Fuck you guys.
We did.
All right. Kind of surprised you didn't mention the snitch.
Oh yeah, there's also a E3 snitch who posted the entire state of play the state of play days before, and then it wasn't like a prediction thing where you deleted tweets. He had an image of what was going to be at the state of play, and he has since posted some other stuff too that has been proven. And what's the latest thing that
today it was a remaster of Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core.
Yeah,
which is a
Crisis
which
Core
probably
for all
gonna be that
systems
thing
too.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
For all systems too.
Do we want that?
Yeah.
Is that a thing that we want?
Nah,
Some
we're
people
good.
want it.
some people.
All right, cool. Good for them. I'm happy for them. All right, Chris Davis, why don't you go next?
Okay. So I wanted to spend my minute talking about some games that we haven't talked about tonight and didn't talk about last week. That got reveals and trailers and stuff like that. That I kind of think is a bit of a disappointment that we didn't really mention. The PC gaming show, it's never that good a broadcast.
Oh, it's the trash fire.
But
good
it
games.
had some good stuff in there. We got a trailer for Tactical Breach Wizards, which looks like really fun. That's a kind of a SWAT style, breach and enter game from Tom Francis, the developer of Gunpoint. And it looks like it has that kind of gunpoint writing, which is going to be a lot of fun. There was a game. They showed off a new trailer for the remake of System Shock.
Yes.
That looked pretty good, honestly.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, it doesn't look like it's changed a ton since like
No.
that first backer demo we got, but I was pretty impressed with it back then. So it's only gotten better. I'm looking forward to that game finally coming out because I found out yesterday that I've been supporting. I was like, God, when did I support this game on Kickstarter? 2016. Holy shit.
There's a demo out right now for a game that got announced called Agent 64. It's a heavily inspired homage of GoldenEye and Perfect Dark 1.
Heavily inspired homage. That was a ripoff of GoldenEye 64.
It basically is. I mean, down to like the aiming and any animations, but it looks like it'll be a lot of fun. I look forward to playing the demo.
I'll be honest. I looked at that and was like, "This is almost gross." that it's so close, but whatever.
We got a trailer for Deliver Us Mars, which looks to be like a drama, third-person sci-fi
walking simulator on Mars, baby. I'm all in.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like a cool premise. It looks fun. New Blood's doing what they do. They decided to do like an HD port of Dusk with like updated models because they fucking can. So whatever.
I didn't see that. Interesting.
Yeah, it looks kind of fun. I almost want to kind of replay it just to experience those models. Three more things. They ended the show by showing a mod for Half-Life Alyx called Levitation. That has the approved, unapproved kind of nod from Valve as a new piece of Alyx content. It looks pretty good. It looks like they're having fun with level design. The whole idea is that Alyx goes into a levitating building to find some missing resistance fighters.
Interesting.
It looks like something interesting. I think Russell is evidently like a co-op character that goes with you too, something like that.
That game was so good that I foresee myself replaying it at some point.
Yeah. Also, there's a demo out for a game that got revealed called Angerfoot. It's a little weird. It's like first-person Hotline Miami set to a beat. You're like kicking indoors. The whole thing is that you're like kicking is like your primary attack.
Yeah.
And it looks pretty satisfying.
The Angerfoot.
It's the Angerfoot.
It's very this is Sparta kicking.
Nice.
Like,
Pretty much.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
yeah,
I'm
and
still
again-
trying to go through that E3 recap site and just like finding stuff. There's so many things on that fucking list.
Yeah, there's a metric fun.
But that
Angerfoot
website
is a game
awesome.
that's already out and it's on itch. But
Oh, it's
really?
an itch game.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, good for them.
If you're curious about it.
And then, so Microsoft held a second Xbox event that was really more just like developer interviews and not really showing off that much. But they ended the show showing off Stalker 2.
Oh, yes.
They showed off the cinematic introduction to the game, which looks very, very like a homage to the original Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl, in how it's presented. But as part of that, they announced that they're going to be doing developer diaries, and the entire developer diary was a reaction to the war in Ukraine, and it is a bit of a gut wrenching thing to watch.
It takes a turn. It's showing like the developers who have now like the ones who have managed to move out of the city and move to a different location, like their new, like showing the studio that they had to abandon, basically showing them like moving all of their computers out of the offices, showing some of the developers who even took up arms and like as volunteers in the war and stuff.
Showing
and
developers that are just hiding out and living in bathrooms, trying to avoid the air raids and bombs hitting them.
It's crazy. It's something I never thought I would see in a developer diary, but it's, and especially for a game like Stalker, which is just kind of chilling, I suppose. But, it's obviously they made the right call by delaying that game. And, it's hard to watch, but I personally appreciate the update from them and everything. And oof.
I'm glad to see just beyond the idea of the war and just the absolute bullshit that's going on in the world today. From a game development perspective, I think it's really interesting also to see just how much of a different studio this GSC Game World is from what it was 15 years ago.
I had that same thought, not knowing too much about them, but based on what you told me about them on the Revival Club podcast, like
this is a story development house that has been rebuilt to make this game. This is a whole new generation of developers making this. So yeah, I would highly encourage anybody that hasn't seen it yet to watch the developer diary. It should get you excited for the game. But it is a difficult watch.
That was the interesting thing. It's a tough watch, but it's also like hopeful, and it kind of, it made me feel, it felt good to like get an update from the people who are making this game and see all like the real world shit that's happening. Like, and Gigamir in chat is totally right. It says we're lucky this game is even launching at all at this point, but like they are determined and they're pushing forward with it, and pretty inspiring, and it's pretty crazy and fucked up. So
there's going to be an incredible story one day that's told about this company now.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Especially, absolutely. Okay, Nolan, your turn.
All right, my too fast 4 minutes starts now. I was pretty surprised with the Xbox conference. I understand that we didn't get a bunch of the games that we wanted, Brad. Yes, I would have loved to have seen Dragon's Dogma 2. And while I do think it is coming, I was surprised with the games we did see. I'm every day more and more willing to play, great indie games. And so when I see good indie games get announced, I'm more excited for them, because for the most part, I either know that they're going to be short and sweet, or have just very deep mechanics and not filled with fluff. And I feel that, we had talked about procedurally generate, 1,000 worlds. You're not going to find an indie game. I mean, to an extent, I'm sure there are some out there are playing with like machine learning, but you're not going to find an indie game that it is filled with so much fluff that you feel like you're just wasting your time. And so with stuff like Cocoon and the last case of Benedict Fox, I'm very excited for those. But I did want to say I'm very optimistic from what I saw from Starfield. I'm hoping that it is everything I want it to be. And if it's not, then it's going to be another No Man's Sky, and I'll probably still play it and enjoy it, but we'll see what happens. But that's it. That's my too fast for a minute.
Too fast for a minute. All right. Well, my 4-player minute starts now. This is just kind of a general commentary, I guess, on the show that we got this week. On one hand, there's some disappointments, like Nolan said. On the other hand, I think there's a lot to be excited about. Strangely enough, 2022, which I think started really strong, And for a while, I was like, this is going to be one of the best years in gaming ever. And I still think it might, especially with Elden Ring, obviously doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But 2023 is starting to look ridiculous. And I'm pretty excited about some of that stuff
We
that's
always
coming.
say that. We always say that.
Oh, I know. But like it is
And then more
looking-
stuff's going to get delayed, and maybe a couple of them will be bad, surprisingly bad. And then we're like, we're back to where we're started. You know.
And then the cycle starts all over. I know, but like I'm finding I'm intrigued by a lot of the stuff that I now find myself looking forward to in the back half of 2022. And it's stuff I didn't really expect. I found myself
there. Forspoken. There's a new video out there that I think Jay are having watched, and it actually got me interested in a way I had not really been interested in that game at all.
I keep forgetting about that, but that's definitely coming. But I find myself thinking about some of the unexpected things. Like for whatever reason, Atomic Heart has been on my mind quite a bit, and that game continues to look like it could be either fucking amazing and like right up my alley, or it could be just this complete mess, and I don't know. But I'm thinking about it all the time. So I'm pretty excited for that, and but there's so many other experiences that are coming that I'm also like thinking about a lot. A lot of the indie stuff like Cocoon, like Nolan said, and Redfall, and just like all those games are now 2023. So I don't know,
Isn't God of
it's
War
weird.
still this year?
God of War, as far as we know, is still slated for 2022. There was a rumor that was floating around that it was
Barlog
delayed.
tweeted today. Oh,
He
sorry.
did.
What's up?
He tweeted today for the first time in a while, right?
Yeah. That instead of playing his Steam Deck, he was playing another game, and he was holding a PS5 controller. So clearly, God of War. But yeah.
Yeah. So I
It's
think God of
coming.
War is gonna. I think God of War is gonna be the like the big winter release for 2022, which is great. Pretty excited for that. But just a lot of smaller experiences that are kind of like, or smaller experiences and just kind of like unknown quantities, I think are kind of making up the back half of the year, which makes it exciting. So I don't know.
Bigger games too. I think the new Saints Row game could actually end up being pretty fun, and there's a new Xenoblade coming out this summer, and I'm excited about that.
And I watched the latest Saints Row trailer again the other day, and I think all my excitement for that game has just kind of dwindled. It did nothing for me, which is funny because the first time they showed it, which is as predicted, when it looked a bit more serious, like it was trying to go more for like the GTA thing and less like the zany wackiness, I was way more into it. And now that it's starting to really lean into the absurdity, it's losing me fast.
What are you talking about?
I don't know, man. I'm not into it. I think I'm gonna pass on that. unless it's fucking amazing. And people convince me otherwise. I mean, who knows? This podcast has done some weird things in the past, so for me, so maybe y'all will turn me around on it if it's great. But right now, my interest level is peaked on it, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know where I was really going with this, other than to say that 2022 now looks weird, and 2023 looks exciting, and that in and of itself is kind of exciting. So
if it makes you one perspective you can work with here, Nick, is that the game of the year stuff is going to be so much easier on you.
No, it's really not. It's going to be harder because I don't know. It's going to be. I've already played 10 games that came out this year, and I have no idea. I think maybe 3 of them are games that I would consider putting on a top 10 list. I don't know. But it's only June, so let's not talk about that right now. But yeah, that is our show this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday with another episode. I think we might be talking about maybe some of those Steam Next Fest demos next week, maybe, possibly. I know I downloaded a handful of them, and I want to play through some of that stuff.
We've
also,
still got more game announcements that we have to talk about that are happening tomorrow.
Yes, well, potentially. There's a Final Fantasy event tomorrow, and the Dragon's Dogma thing happening tomorrow. So
at
maybe
the
if we're lucky,
same time.
At the exact same time, which also happens to coincide with me driving home from work again. So that's fun. But yeah. Anyways, we'll hopefully have some exciting news to talk about next week. No promises though. And also tune in at the end of the month. We'll be doing a top 3. We'll be announcing that the official topic for that here pretty soon, but. One regular show next week, followed by a top 3 that'll close out June. In the meantime, you can find all of our episodes on 4playernetwork.com. If you want to support us financially, you can go to patreon.com/4player. But most importantly, you can join us in Discord for absolutely $0. It's completely free, and it's full of exciting, nice, wonderful people who are very passionate about video games. You can find us at discord.gg/4player. Until next week, be safe, be kind to each other, play video games. Good night.
Bye.
Hey.